Good evening, council, staff, members of the public. May I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Councillor Garwood, Deputy Cabral, that the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of December 6th come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Please join me in the singing of our national anthem. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all hearts command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, our true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for. Thank you. Councilor, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Councilor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Upon advice from the Integrity Commissioner, I will be declaring a indirect pecuniary interest on item 9.7, agreement renewal, Floss Agricultural Society. And under the bylaws, item 14.7, 2023-120, agreement with the Floss Agricultural Society, use of the Elmville Arena, Fall Fair Barn, and general grounds maintenance, 14 George Street, Elmville. I'm currently the second vice president of the Floss Agricultural Society and will not be participating in that discussion.
Thank you. At this time, are there any other disclosures? Seeing none, I will now call upon Michael Kelly from Elmville Manor Hockey.
All right, thank you for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about a couple opportunities or initiatives that Elmville Minor Hockey is undertaking over the next 6 or so months. First one here, 4.1, is specifically to do with the 2024-2025 U15 Nordic Experience. That is a group of young men and women that are going to be traveling to Scandinavia, not this Christmas, but the following Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's, for a 10-day trip to immerse themselves in the culture and engage the people of Finland and Sweden. And so what we're asking here for is for a $750 sponsorship for one of our events, one of our fundraising events that's coming up in May, our cornhole tournament. And in general, you will receive some publicity for that that $750. You'll get we give away a little bit of swag to everybody that comes, and so that will be part of it. And then the team itself has social media posts and things of that nature, and just in general goodwill from that perspective. We are on a whole looking to raise about $195,000, and that money is specifically to make sure that the kids can go for free, remove that barrier for their parents. In some cases, this will be a trip of a lifetime for them. They won't, some of them may not get another opportunity like this. So we try our absolute best to make sure that we remove as many barriers to getting them over there as possible. And I think that it speaks to our community that has stepped up so far, that we're so far along in our fundraising efforts, but we're not there. And so so I'm just looking for that from you on this specific opportunity. So questions?
Thank you. At this time, I will ask for a mover and seconder to receive the delegation, and then we can have comments. I have Counselor Alexander and Deputy Cabral that the delegation from Michael Kelly of the Elmville Minor Hockey Association regarding request for sponsorship to the 2024-25 Elmville Minor Hockey Nordic Experience be received. And at this time, Council, are there any comments or questions? Counselor Alexander?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Thank you, Michael, for the presentation. It's a great experience. My son unfortunately was never the right age to attend, but he certainly had friends that went the last time and through the pictures, and it's just such an amazing experience for our kids to be able to go over and do something like that. So I commend you for organizing it. On to that, I would like to add an amendment, which would be, oh, go ahead. Oh, sorry, I thought you were and that council hereby approve a donation of $750 to the Elmville Minor Hockey Nordic Experience, with funding to be provided through the proceeds of the 2023 Springwater Swing Golf Tournament.
Fantastic. And a seconder, I have Counselor Garwood seconding. Any further discussion on the amendment?
There we go. Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just a comment. I do support it, but I also think that the benefits from this type of an exchange, let's say, because we do know that there are Scandinavian hockey teams that have come to Ontario, come to Canada quite often for a similar type of an exchange. So I think it bodes well for Springwater Township as a whole, as far as folks knowing that we do support our youth. Thank you.
Nothing further. At this time, we'll be voting on the amendment. All those in favor? That has carried, and we will go back to the main motion. So we are going back to the main motion as amended. So all those in favor, and that has carried. And at this time, I will be calling Michael Kelly. All right, we'll move on now to 4.2.
Okay, so yeah, that last one was very specific to a particular team. The second initiative, this one is an Elmville Minor Hockey initiative. And what we are doing coming up on Valentine's Day, no better day than to go to the hockey rink, is we have been given the opportunity to host a practice for the Memorial Cup hosts. The Saginaw Spirit. For those who are not aware, Dave Drinko, who was a Springwater resident, played in Elmville Minor Hockey. He is now the GM, general manager for that team. And so they are playing in Barrie on the 15th. So he's given us the opportunity to have Saginaw practice in our community center on the 14th. And so what Dave and I kind of been going back and forth, but what we've set up is they're going to practice. We're going to have it open, no cost other than donations to the food bank. So we're not raising any funds for Elmville Minor Hockey. Everything that is raised that night will go to the food bank. Dave's mom is also a volunteer at the Elmville Food Bank, so it's near and dear to his heart and hers and all of ours. But that's how that happened. And so it's it's kind of spiraled a little bit here, and so we're going to have some pretty cool things for the kids to do that night. They're going to watch the kids practice, but we're also going to have the Memorial Cup itself is going to be on site for pictures. And if you're into hockey, then that's a fairly big deal. And then the TSN is doing a documentary on the spirit and the road to the Memorial Cup. And they're going to be on site as well, filming what's going on. And we're going to have a few giveaways and things like that for those that are in attendance. We're expecting a few hundred, 300 to 600 people in the rink that night. So we think that'll be quite good for the food bank and quite good for our members, like Elmville Minor Hockey members and the public itself. So we're looking for, in this case, we're looking for the rental of the upstairs and the 1 hour of ice rental that we're on the hook for to be compensated. That's what we're looking for.
Thank you for that. At this time, I will have a mover and seconder to receive the delegation. I have Councillor Fisher and Moore. That the delegation from Michael Kelly of Elmville Minor Hockey Association regarding the request for the contribution of ice rental and spring water room rental for the food bank fundraiser be received. At this time, I'll open it up to members of council for a comment or question. Councillor Alexander.
I'll just keep talking. Again, I think it's a great initiative. It's great. The food bank, as we know, is always in need. It's a great time probably for the food bank because I do know after Christmas, people tend to forget about them. So it's probably very good timing in that perspective. And again, an amazing opportunity for the kids to come out and watch kids that they look up to. So I'm full support of it. And I would like to add an amendment being, and that council hereby approve an in-kind donation to Elmville Minor Hockey to host the food bank fundraiser at the Elmville Arena on February 14th, 2024 by waiving fees for 1 hour of ice rental and an evening rental of the spring water room.
And second, Councillor Garwood. Any comments or questions on the amendment? Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and thanks, Mike, for coming out tonight. Again, I echo everything that Councillor Alexander has noted. I just want to speak about how obviously hockey's always been a huge sport in the Elmville community, but I know recently with the efforts that EMHA has been putting forward in regards to the Hockeyville initiative and the banners down Queen Street, our hockey community is truly looking like one these days. So I think this will be a great event, and I look forward to coming out and watching.
I'm sure that's how your wife wants to spend Valentine's Day. All right. Anything further? Anything from? No. All right. All those in favor of the amendment? And that has carried. And we will now go back to the main motion as amended. And council, all those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Don't want to be rude, but probably gonna leave. That's all. Thank you very much.
We know you're going home to watch, so. And at this time, I will now call upon Andrew Webster to bring forward a presentation. Thank you and welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Coughlin and members of council. My name is Andrew Webster. This is my colleague, David Luke. We're here representing the Midhurst Heights project tonight, and we're making a delegation regarding approval of our stage 3 subdivision agreement. By means of a bit of background, I think everyone is aware that the project is well underway. The earthworks agreement was approved in the middle of last year, and earthworks are now complete. The servicing agreement was approved this summer, and the servicing is now about 70% complete. And the water treatment plant and sewage pumping station building permits were issued earlier this fall, and we've made great progress on that since the permits were received. Works external to the site are required to advance the project and must start shortly to avoid delays. The specific external works that we're seeking to advance at this point are the force main that will connect our sewage pumping station to the ultimate wastewater treatment plant, a storm outfall for our site so that stormwater has a place to go, and road improvements on Finley Mill Road, Dorn Row, and Gill Road. The detailed design of the proposed improvements is now complete and has addressed the critical path issues that have been articulated by staff as we've been driving towards this process over the last little while. As with any large multi-phase project, there are elements of the infrastructure that remain to be designed, for example, the phase 2 or ultimate stormwater outfall. But those pieces of infrastructure are not required for the phases that we're seeking to advance right now. And so we don't think that that should preclude council from advancing the stage 3 agreement at this point. We're here tonight because the force main and road projects are significant projects in the community.
Sorry, Mr. Webster, can I ask that you say next slide when you would like it to be forwarded? I feel that you're moving forward and the slides are still behind. Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder, and I apologize. We got the right slide up there, so I'm starting on the right spot. Okay, cool. So we're here tonight. The force main and road improvement projects are significant projects. They're going to cause a disruption on Finley Mill that runs through the heart of the community. And we and staff thought that it were important to make sure that council was part of the decision to bring this forward. Our request tonight is that staff bring back a motion at the next council meeting recommending execution of the stage 3 agreement. That we permit force main construction to start in January, and that we work towards scheduling a public information meeting to discuss the roadworks and the potential impact to the community prior to starting the roadworks in the spring of 24, once the the weather is a bit more conducive. We're here tonight because the timing has reached a sort of a critical point. We've been working hard to ensure that the designs for the infrastructure minimize the impact to the community, and there is the potential to complete the works in one construction season and be out of the community's hair by the end of the fall next year. But if we can't start on the force main in January, that schedule is unlikely to be deliverable. And we also think it's in the township's best interest to consider advancing this infrastructure at this point, because it is critical to our progress towards building permits, and the date at which we can hold down building permits is the date upon which we pay DCs, and that will help fund some of the community improvements that we think the residents are excited about, including the community hub. Next slide, please. Just to make the project a bit more real, here are some recent site pictures. These were taken, I think, at the end of last month. We have been scrambling all summer to service nearly 285 lots and get the roads paved before the snow flies. And we're happy to report that Street A, that will connect Russell Road to Gill Road, has been completely paved and is ready to operate, which is an exciting milestone. And we're happy to have achieved it, given a tight timeline. Next slide, please. And to provide the mayor and members of council with an overview of sort of the entire project, there are two communities within the Midhurst secondary plan. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the Doran community, which our site is a part of. It's circled in red there. There's also the Carson community in the lower left-hand corner of the slide. That's where the wastewater treatment plant is going to be. The infrastructure that we're seeking to install under the stage 3 agreement is an interim storm outfall. You can see it runs sort of north and west of the site, and a force main that connects our sewage pumping station to the ultimate wastewater treatment plant in the Carson neighborhood, and the subsequent road improvements on the Finlay Mill Road. Next slide, please. The designs for all three pieces of infrastructure have been underway for quite a while. We've made a number of submissions on each piece of infrastructure over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. There's been a lot of back and forth, and we're very excited about where the final designs for these projects have ended up, because we think that they deliver significant benefits to the community. And we're also pleased that after a long design process, all three pieces of infrastructure, the designs are complete, and it's appropriate to proceed with a stage 3 agreement at this point. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we're excited about the designs because they deliver some benefits to the community. The force main will be installed using directional drilling. The original approach was that we were going to open cut trench a pipe down Finlay Mill Road, and we elected to pursue a more costly construction method that would minimize the impact on the surface and allow the compressed timeline to get all of the works done in 1 year. The force main that's going to run underneath Finlay Mill Road, the original design contemplated having it hung from the bridge at Finlay Mill and Waddy Road. And at the request of the township, we have decided to route the force main underneath Willow Creek. That will provide additional environmental protections in the event that there is a spill, which is a very, very small likelihood in the first place. And the force main is also going to help support progress on the community hub project, because our understanding is that the community hub will ultimately discharge its sewage to this pipe, and without the pipe in place, it will be difficult to make progress on it. The road improvements projects are going to replace a sort of a tired road corridor. I think Finlay Mill Road asphalt is in need of revitalization, and we're excited to be bringing that forward. And the current road design doesn't provide any enhancements for the stormwater. The stormwater that falls on the road just runs directly into Willow Creek. And we will be installing storm sewers underneath the road that will collect that water and clean it before it's discharged to Willow Creek. And we think that that's a significant environmental benefit. The road improvements will create a pedestrian link between the site up on the hill where all of the houses are, the existing community and the community hub. That is missing right now. There's no real bike infrastructure to get down Finley Mill Road. And some of the sidewalks are deficient in width, and we're going to make them wider. And we're also going to add some signalized pedestrian crosswalks that will enhance pedestrian safety. On the storm outfall, the design has evolved significantly from what was originally proposed. The design that we have landed on delivers significant financial benefits to the township. Township will be required to assume and operate and maintain this pipe in the long term. The refined design is significantly shorter than the original design, which will lead to lower operations and maintenance costs. It also avoids an area of essentially quicksand. And so it's a much stronger ground in which to install a pipe, which means that it's unlikely to have any problems over the course of its life. And our understanding is that the township's Craig Road project will need to provide an outlet for its stormwater. And we think that the only stormwater outlet that's been contemplated in the Doran neighborhood is the one that we'll be building, and we'll be sharing costs. And so if we can build a shorter, less expensive stormwater pipe, that will also benefit the town's capital cost for the Craig Road project. Next slide, please.
There's about 2 minutes left.
Okay.
Thank you.
As we've been working through this process for a long time, the conversation with township staff led to a list of critical path items that was provided to us earlier this year. We and our consulting team have been working diligently on resolving all of the items listed in that document, and we're pleased to report that as of recently, they are all resolved. Next slide, please. This is a list of sort of the high-level critical path items that were laid out in that document and the status of each. I won't bore you with the details right now, and since I've got about 30 seconds left, I don't think I have the time. But if there are any questions about it, we have detailed appendices and can speak to basically any of the issues on any of these items that the mayor and council might have questions about. Next slide, please. And now we'd like to open it up to questions. Thank you very much for making time for us to present.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. At this time, I'll have a mover and seconder to, receive the delegation. I have Councillor Fisher and Moore, that the delegation from Andrew Webster of Claire Rose Midhurst GP Incorporated regarding the Midhurst Heights request for approval of the Stage 3 subdivision agreement be received. And at this time, I can open it up to members of council for a comment. Councillor Fisher.
Excuse me. I just wanted to make a comment first off, as the Ward 5 councillor where this project is taking place, I definitely take some real interest in what's happening and the timeline in which it's happening in. I personally would like to see the infrastructure going in the ground in an expedited fashion. One main reason is the construction timeline. If I have one season, I say myself and my residents have one season of minimal disruption, that's to be expected. And particularly when we're getting better infrastructure like roads and crosswalks. But if we were to start in April or March or April, I'm worried that my residents will see nearly 2 construction seasons of disruption. So I would like to see us move forward with the Stage 3 agreement in an expedited fashion, but also engage the public as well. Start to engage them to inform all of those who don't already know, and many of them do, on Finley Mill Road and Doran Road, so that they can be well informed, not just about what's going to be happening, but what will be, the machinery involved, if any trees need to be taken out, just a very fulsome discussion with those residents already.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and thank you for the presentation. Some of the things that come to mind actually fairly recently was over the course of the last few years where, you know, some developers have come before us that are in the process of putting into shape subdivisions, and some of them has been asking actually for extensions, fairly lengthy ones at times. And I'm also mindful of the fact that provincial government right now is looking to try and minimize that type of action going forward on the development side. And it kind of just brings the thought to me that rather in this particular case, you are actually trying to move forward and meet some of the I guess, desires of the provincial government and more homes faster, that whole aspect of it. And this has been in the plan for a while, in the works for a while. But I do have a couple of questions, and maybe not necessarily for you, but maybe possibly to be directed to CAO, if he might be able to provide some kind of answer with respect to the Public Information Center. I have to agree with Councillor Fisher, and I think most of us would like to see, you know, the public have input. I certainly understand that you're trying to do this in one season, and that certainly is beneficial to the community at large because it's only going to be the 1 year. But on that public information piece, I would really like to know first how soon we might be able to arrange for that. And I guess the second piece is with respect to maybe some of the finer details regarding the actual agreement, whether or not staff is in a position to bring a report forward. How long would that take so that council can make a decision at that time and see if we could, because I would like to see the project move forward. So I don't know if that's something CAO Schmidt can respond to, or whether it's something that would have to come from another member of staff. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Schmidt, and we do have Planner Russell online with us.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Maybe I'll start, and if Planner Russell has anything to add, we can turn to him. So to answer the Deputy Mayor's comments or questions regarding the PIC and the agreement piece. So the PIC, or the Public Information Center, is something that I know our friends that are delegating tonight have had discussions with staff. And my understanding is that, you know, we're in a position to agree to schedule a PIC. I think the challenge has been timing of when that is. Obviously, we're approaching the Christmas season or the holiday season. And so I think staff's position was that, you know, we're a little concerned that if it is before Christmas, are we going to get as many residents at the PIC? And so I think our position was that, you know, we would prefer to have a PIC in January. And then I guess subsequent to that, we would then come forward to council with a subdivision agreement for your consideration, which would follow the PIC. I think staff's position has been that we would suggest that a PIC should happen first before any infrastructure works commence in the community. Maybe I'll leave it at that, and happy to answer other questions.
Thank you. And was there any comment from him? I'll go to Councillor Fisher.
Just a comment, piggybacking on what the CAO Schmidt said. I do agree. I would like to see a discussion with the public. I will say this, and speaking from my ward here, most people on Finley Mill do know that infrastructure will be happening at some point. So there is some level of knowledge already. My vision, my thought would be that as we've discussed before, maybe a mailer would go out, they'd be informed, but then prior to, so we could expedite that in December, because as I know, in discussions with the CAO, the PIC falls on the developer, right? So it would be your responsibility to go out to the public in very quickly and engage them. But then subsequently, I would like to see open houses where they could come in. There are venues actually very, very close to all of those homes, walking distance. And I would like to see more than one where people over time could come in, have discussions with those involved, perhaps Springwater staff as well. So in the interest of moving it forward, there's a piece of it, but then there's also ongoing interaction with the public. And that's what I would like to see. It would help out the developer, but I think it would also inform the public better over time.
Your comment? Yes.
We're happy to do whatever sort of public engagement, mayor, council, staff would like. We're prepared to start that engagement as early as tomorrow. The draft materials have been ready for months at this point. If we are working towards public engagement in January, it would be helpful if we could work towards a world in which we start the force main prior to some of the public engagement. We expect that, like, the real critical path is to start the force main in January. We don't expect to start the road construction until the spring. We expect that the road constructions are going to be much more disruptive than the force main, because that's where you're actually impacting the surface of the road. And if the resolution tonight was that we could move forward with the force main and have some public engagement in January and work on a separate agreement for the roads, that would also work. And that would give us lots of time to have as many open houses as we wanted to.
Thank you for that comment. I'm going to turn to CEO Schmidt. Is there a concern, understanding that a stage 3 agreement, typically everything is in that one agreement? Is it consistent that we would pull specific items out? I'm just curious how we would move in my mind, if there's road work happening, and not road work, if the drilling is happening, that requires an agreement, and moving forward in any form of agreement without public consultation is, this has been a long process with Midhurst. There's been a lot of engagement over, I'm sure you're very well aware. And I think they have, in the last decade, asked over and over again to make sure that they are informed and that they are included as things move forward. So CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So I guess if we look back at what's happened previously through a staged subdivision agreement, precedent has been set whereby typically, stage 1 is kind of more your, I guess your grading and or not site surface, but more your grading. Stage 2 allows for the kind of internal servicing piece, which our friends here have now, as well as you'll recall that an amended stage 2 agreement came forward to permit them to proceed with their water treatment plant as well as their sewage pumping station. Typically the remaining works, which is more the external works piece, so your roads, the force main, the stormwater outfall, those would typically come as part of a stage 3 agreement as a package deal. That said, we're in council's hands. If council wishes to modify that or amend that, then council can do so. But staff at this stage, we would prefer a one agreement, but again, council can decide to make whatever changes they wish.
I have Councillor Alexander, Councillor Moore, and Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. To CEO Schmidt, what is the reasonings behind preferring to keep the stage 3 agreement all as one versus having it split up? I am not really familiar with it. This is my first time around with this. So just kind of what are the thought process behind that?
CEO Schmidt.
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Alexander. Again, I think it's just a matter of packaging all the external works into one agreement as opposed to having multiple agreements for the various different pieces of infrastructure that are required. But again, there's nothing to suggest that if council chooses to walk that path, you could do so. It's just we haven't typically done that.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to CEO Schmidt. So if we were to say that the public information session could go ahead as quickly as possible and as quickly as the developer could get things organized, what are we looking at for timing? And then a report to come back with recommendations as a package. What would that look like for timing?
CEO Schmidt.
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Moore. So assuming that the council is supportive of a PIC happening before Christmas, I believe staff would likely be in a position to aim to bring forward a stage 3 subdivision agreement for the January 17th meeting for council's consideration.
Thank you for that. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I do appreciate that question, Councilor Moore. That's kind of where I was headed with my initial questions. From what I'm hearing, CEO Schmidt, we have done similar things in the past then, depending on what developer was wanting to move where. As far as the public outreach piece is concerned, it sounds to me like the Rose Corp is in a position and has been for some time to actually do that. I think maybe permitting them the opportunity to put that public information piece out there and have a couple of open houses, information centers, even if it is during the Christmas months, because I think once January rolls around, a lot of people are kind of disinterested in what's going on at times too, and a lot of folks head south, for a bit of a breather. So I don't know about the timing per se, whether that's a critical piece, but it sounds to me that if we can accommodate moving them forward so that we can actually get some houses built, that would be beneficial to the community at large, as well as keeping in line with what the Ford administration is looking for as far as the number of people that are going to be coming into Canada, and then having that report available for the January the 17th meeting. I think that's a way to at least try and accommodate the request. So I would be in support of that.
Councillor Fisher?
I think that was.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and thank you, Councillor Fisher. We're being kind so far. Just a few comments I wanted to make. I think we can all agree up here that we want to ensure that communication is provided to all of our residents at all time. Not to say that the example I'm going to throw out there is anything similar to a large development, but in my community recently, we've had many smaller community projects that have required a lot of communication. And even when we have done proactive communication, there still seems to consistently be that reactive reaching out and connecting back because of concerns that our residents bring forward. So I'm putting that lens over my thought process when I'm having this discussion. So I guess I'm going to direct my questions through to the CAO. Similar to what Councillor Alexander had mentioned, my first time around as well in this scenario, what is expected to come back from a public information center that would potentially hold up an agreement of this sorts? Understanding I completely agree, we should absolutely have this PIC completed before we move forward, but what are examples, I guess, of maybe past PICs that have been completed that that might change the direction of a council or staff?
Would you like me to go to Planner Russell for examples of comments that would stem from Planner Russell? Or it was directed to you by Councillor Garwood, but I do. Thank you. Planner Russell, just some examples of comments from residents through a PIC.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and through you to the rest of the council. The immediate example that comes to mind is generally related to vibration and vibration monitoring that members of the public are generally concerned about things, with directional drilling. So those are the types of things that we would want to build into any agreement for external servicing, that the developers either provide vibration monitors to the resident at no cost to them, and we ensure that there are acceptable levels of vibration for things like improvements. So that kind of stuff.
Councillor Garwood has a follow-on.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and through to Planner Russell. I appreciate that. That's super helpful. Is there scenarios where we are proactive and we include those in those agreements initially? So we are thinking about what has happened in regards to other scenarios and other PICs that have happened. We're being proactive. Those are being included. We're still going out there. We're still hosting the information center, but we're maybe making less work on the back end. So we are keeping our residents top of mind while also ensuring, as others have mentioned, that we're building homes faster.
Planner Russell?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Coughlin, to council. At this time, I don't believe the draft stage 3 agreement has been completed, so I can't speak to whether that is already built into this. My position would be that that's something we do build in early, anticipating what the community is going to say. But from my perspective, I think the reality is we don't know exactly everything the community may come out with, and there may be something that we haven't thought of that has merit and that we do have the opportunity to build into that agreement going forward. And essentially before we've executed that, that's sort of my initial thoughts on that anyway.
Thank you. CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mayor Coggan, through you to members of council. So just to further elaborate on Planner Russell's comments regarding a PIC. So some of the things that a PIC will also assist with is obviously the infrastructure that's being constructed or proposed to be constructed. The design of that infrastructure would be provided to the community, and members of the community could then view the design and ensure and or ask questions as to how does that infrastructure, the potential infrastructure, impact my own property, personal property. Again, it provides an opportunity for residents to ask questions and to clarify things that they may not fully understand. And I know Mr. Webster mentioned that the material has been available for months. I would just caution in the sense that the material may have been available for months. However, there's a review by the township team that needs to be completed to ensure that the material is in a position where the township agrees with what's being proposed and going to be presented to our residents. So I know there's been some back and forth on that because there has been some changes and or some modifications to some of the roadwork pieces specifically that was only completed recently. So again, with all due respect, my team has been working with Mr. Webster and his team, and we're agreeable to a PIC. It's just only recently that information has been somewhat vetted and agreed to.
Thank you. I do recall, I'm going to Councillor Fisher at PIC years ago, they were going from a road that had ditches to a road that had sidewalks. And the concern was for residents that their laneways were now cut by the sidewalk. So it was what side of the road the sidewalk was going to go on and things like that. So it's just getting their opinion on lots of things. Councillor Fisher and then Councillor Thompson.
I just wanted to say that, when a developer like Rose Corporation or Geranium or any other comes in, or even some of the smaller ones that we've seen in Elmvale, we essentially enter into a partnership, a working relationship with that business, that group of people. And again, as the Ward 5 councillor, I think Rose Corporation has been a very good neighbor thus far. And it's one reason I'd like to see the stage 3 go ahead, frankly. Even in terms of communication back and forth, they've been very good thus far. And I know that there is a want to communicate with the residents. And I think that, frankly, showing some good faith from us as a council, as a municipality towards them in this, I hope to keep the relationship going so that there'll be many more times where our staff and our senior staff have to work with them. And I'm hoping that frankly, a good working relationship will allow us to, I'll use the term I often do, win-win situations between us, because I know this won't be the only interaction we have. There'll be many more that you have with senior staff. So, I do see this as frankly a benefit for my community, my ward, and I think that when any of us are speaking for our individual wards, I'll certainly listen to each one of you when it comes to that. This is of some level of importance to me because it is a level of disruption or minimizing disruption for my residents. I also think it's a benefit to, certain infrastructure improvements for my residents. But I also think for Springwater as a whole, we will have to work with Rose Corp into the future, probably councils into the future. So I think having a good working relationship, there'll be asks that we have in the future of you, right? I'm quite sure. But I think that the level of communication, even with this delegation, I can tell you this, I like that level of communication, and I would hope that even other developers would do that as well, because then it becomes a council discussion and a council decision. So,
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor, and through the chair to Mr. Webster. Just a question of curiosity. I think this directional drilling was the same process that was used on Wilson that goes out into Willow Creek, and hopefully you're familiar with all the problems that occurred. And residents weren't very happy with this process. So question, and there was actually only one resident on Wilson, and there was a significant concern that took some time to resolve. And finally it is, thankfully, but many people had to get involved to make sure it was resolved. Are we using the same company, and what would be put in place that this doesn't happen again?
Mr. Webster?
That's an easy question. I like ones like that. So yes, it's the same technology that was used on Wilson Road. The problems on Wilson Road were not caused by the technology, but by the existing ground conditions. The portion where the sinkholes were encountered was when the force main was being routed through a swamp that had high groundwater table and weak soils. The same sort of quicksand that the original design for the stormwater outfall was proposed to go through. And when we heard about the sinkholes, that's why we started changing our stormwater outfall design. With respect to the contractor, I hope they're not watching this, but we're really excited that we have the best HDD guys in Ontario working on this project. It is the preeminent horizontal directional drilling company, and it is not the company that did the job on Wilson Road.
I have Deputy Cabral and then Councillor Moore.
Well, thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'm just sitting here listening to the progress. I think having the open houses, if it's more than one, it's beneficial to the community. They can have some of their concerns addressed. And I think it's beneficial to the point that it does provide some level of comfort to them, knowing that they can have their concerns addressed and comments made. It also puts us in a position too that when January rolls around, those comments would have already been captured, and some of those concerns could readily be incorporated into hopefully the agreement going forward, so that when it is finally presented, at that point in time, if it's not suitable to council, the answer is probably going to be a no. But I would still think that my feelings on it is that I think the information piece should go forward, and staff should come back in January with something that council can then address and continue to move forward. Because if the T's aren't crossed and the I's aren't dotted at that point in time, support might be a little bit waning. So I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So just a question then back to Mr. Webster. How does that timing sound to you? Do you find that favorable or manageable?
So every day helps at this point, but if
Yeah.
the idea is that we would be seeking approval on January 17th and would be able to start construction shortly after that, we could make that work. We want to work with the township in order to make sure that this project is successful and that the public feels comfortable about the project before we commence. And so that would be great. We can make that work.
Fantastic. Councillor Fisher, is there an amendment that you would like to bring?
Sure. Certainly. My proposition would be that we move forward with a report coming back on the 17th, and that the developer be allowed to engage the public.
Clerk Ainsworth? Just going to call for a seconder. Councillor Moore? Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through to Councillor Fisher. I have a rough draft. I would just like to confirm information regarding the PIC. So I have that staff be directed to come forward with a stage 3 agreement at the January 17 meeting for consideration. And further that council hereby direct that a PIC regarding roadworks be scheduled. Would it be required prior to the January 17th meeting?
Councillor Fisher?
Could that PIC be in the form of engaging the public, say by mailers or going door to door?
Now turn to CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I would maybe propose even a virtual PIC. There's been other applications recently from other developments whereby virtual PICs have also been taken place. So that's another option.
Ainsworth, can I ask you to read the amendment again, please?
Thank you. The amendment would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows: to add and that staff be directed to come forward with a stage 3 agreement at the January 17, 2024 meeting for consideration. And further, that council hereby direct that a public information center, either in person or virtually, regarding road works be scheduled prior to the January 17th regular meeting.
I mean, I think it's just the regarding roadworks, it would just be just so that a PIC be held. Thank you. Council, you have this moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by Councillor Moore. Is there any additional comments or questions?
Recorded vote, please.
On the amendment or the main motion?
On the amendment.
On the amendment.
Thank you. Would anyone like the amendment reread? No. A recorded vote was requested by Deputy Mayor Cabral. Once I state your name, please state yes or no. Councillor Garwood,
Yes.
Councillor Alexander,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Fisher,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Cabral,
Yes.
and Mayor Coughlin.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
So we will now return to our main motion as amended. Council, do we require that to be reread? No. All those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and support.
We're now moving on to question period. And at this time, I will turn to Clerk Ainsworth. Have there been any submissions received?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There have been no submissions received for this evening's meeting.
And are there members of the public who wish to ask a question? Not seeing any. At this time, we will move on to item 6. May I have a mover and seconder for the approval of the council minutes, please? Councillor Alexander and Garwood, that the minutes of council listed herein be approved as presented. 1, the minutes of the special meeting of council of November 13th, 2023. 2, the minutes of the special meeting of council closed session of November 13th, 2023. 3, the minutes of the special meeting of council 2024-25 budget, November 13th, 2023. 4, the minutes of the regular meeting of council, November 15th, 2023. 5, the minutes of the special meeting of council of the 2024-25 budget, November 15th, 2023. 6, the minutes of the special meeting of council 24-25 for the budget of November 20th, 2023. 7, the minutes of the special meeting of council of November 20th, 2023. 8, the minutes of the special meeting of council of closed session of November 20th, 2023. And 9, the minutes of the special meeting of council of 2024-25 budget of November 22nd, 2023. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? And seeing none, all those in favor? And that has carried. We're now moving on to our boards and committees and organizations. May I have a mover and seconder, please? I have Councillor Fisher and Deputy Cabral, that the minutes of the boards, committees, and other organizations listed here and be received for information. And it's the, my apologies, the minutes of the Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee meeting of September 14th, 2023. All those in, are there any comments or questions? All those in favor? And that has carried. At this time, we'll be moving on to number 7, our proposed 2024-25 budget. May I have a mover and seconder for the proposed 2024-25 budget and business plan? I have Councillor Thompson and Councillor Moore. And the motion is that the report from the Director of Finance regarding the proposed 2024-25 budget and business plan dated December 6, 2023 be received, and that the proposed 24 tax-based operating budget, proposed 2024 water wastewater operating budget, proposed 2024 wastewater operating budget, and proposed 2024 capital budget be approved, and that a bylaw to improve the non-union management salary grid be presented for consideration at the December 6, 2023 meeting of council for final approval, and that the 2024 tax rate bylaw be presented, including the county and education requisitions, as soon as the tax ratios have been approved by the County of Simcoe. Are there questions or comments on this motion? I have Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I provided a bit of a statement in regards to my overall opinions in regards to our budget deliberations. Bear with me. Over the past few weeks, I've taken a considerable amount of time thinking about the budget, where we ended up, where we fell short, and how we could do better in the future. Were there positives from this budget cycle? Absolutely. Is our municipality growing at an incredible rate? Yes. Is it our responsibility to invest in our community, not only for today, but for the future of Springwater? Yes. We talk about making the difficult decisions, but in reality, it's easy to cut proposed jobs while providing inconsistent reasoning. I'm aware we live in an expensive world with daily life only costing more each passing moment. This also means what we cut from the budget today will cost the taxpayer more tomorrow. Let's take the economic development officer, for example. It's been almost 14 years since a consultant's report recommended the municipality hire an economic development officer. Throughout the entirety of this term, I've supported all economic development related roles brought forward for consideration. These positions are vital for our growing municipality, community building, and workforce development. We have the ability to make positive change. I'm hoping we don't wait another 14 years for this role to be approved. Another example is COLA. I believe both union and non-union staff offer an exceptional level of service for our residents, and I am proud to work alongside a great group of people here in Springwater. I can now see how my vote in the affirmative at the November 22nd budget meeting would not reflect my before mentioned statement, and I apologize if that was the case. I now understand I personally could have verbally expressed my rationale during the initial discussion. I did not, and that is on me. I believe in equity. Approving a decrease of the proposed COLA for non-union staff has sent the wrong message. I agree with equality, but not with how the initial discussion was framed. After much consideration, it is my belief COLA should have remained at the presented 2024 rate while moving forward, working towards matching COLA for both union and non-union staff in future years. By no means do I want my vote to reflect a lack of admiration or appreciation for our incredible team Springwater. In addition, I continue to share concern as to why this council did not invest in a community librarian for the Springwater Public Library or a support assistant for the Recreation, Parks and Facilities and Public Works team, or an assistant for our people, health and safety and learning team. I could go on. Do the positives outweigh the negatives? I can't answer that question today, but we will soon find out. But what I do know is we can and should do more, and this is what Springwater expects. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson.
First, I want to thank staff for all of their time, effort, and hard work on this budget. There's an old saying that goes something like this: the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is now. 13 years ago, our official plan identified a need for our own economic development officer. This year, like last year, staff included it as a budget priority. They understand that for every dollar we generate in commercial taxes, it takes the pressure off our residential tax base. This position should not have been cut from this year's budget. It is easy to cut. It takes no vision, no effort, or understanding to do so. I was sad to see Barry Today's headline news yesterday, and I quote, "Springwater entering 14th year without economic development officer. Because of void, township is not business friendly or investment ready." Close quote. Clearly, we are sending the wrong message. We again missed an opportunity to plant a tree. As a resident, I am left to ask why. Why are we not planting this EDO money tree in our backyard? As a taxpayer, I know every dollar counts. It is curious to me that council members added and approved to this year's budget a project worth $70,000 for the paving of Victoria Street, but also voted in favor of cutting the economic development officer. This road only services 14 residents and is clearly a low priority for gravel conversion. It is curious to me that council directed staff to add tens of thousands of dollars to this budget to do a direct mail flyer rather than use the less expensive and better option of our local newspaper, yet voted to cut the economic development officer. In my opinion, we need economic development in our township more than a flyer in the mail or the paving of a gravel road that will only benefit a few residents. When one member of council was asked why he voted against the EDO, he said he believed the position has a major negative financial impact to taxpayers. Let's deal with facts. The cost of this program on your tax bill would be $1 per month extra or $12 a year. Hardly any major impact. Changing topics, I was disappointed when a member of council put forth a motion to cut the cost of living adjustment for our staff from the recommended 2.5% to 2%, when the real number is 5.34%. This cut represents $5 a year saving or 42 cents per month saving on my tax bill. As a resident, I would be happy to pay an extra 42 cents a month to help our staff keep up with the cost of living. We need to do better in recognizing the great job staff does and stay competitive with our surrounding municipalities. I don't think this budget comes close to prioritizing the needs of our community. We could have done much better. We should have done much better. I hope in the future when the reconsideration of the EDO comes up again, that we will do better.
Yeah, I have Deputy Cabral. And
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I don't have a prepared statement because most of the comments that I made during deliberation were made at that point in time. And I'm actually disappointed that two members of council now have turned and decided that they are not supporting what the majority of council actually did with the budget. And, your displeasure is quite obvious, but it's your opinions towards your displeasure that you've brought forth. And I would like to say that when you're framing anything, all the facts need to come forward, not just specific facts that you care to allude to today. We're speaking about one particular position. However, at the previous budget, we cut a similar position, a community engagement officer, and that particular position kind of morphed into what was being presented as the economic development officer this time around. So all I can say is if you weren't in support of council as a majority moving forward with this budget, I don't know if now is the time to voice your displeasure and basically say that the majority of council was wrong and you were right.
yeah, I have Councillor Moore, or sorry, it was Councillor Alexander. My apologies.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a quick comment here. I think I certainly appreciate staff coming to us with the budget. They do it's a lot of work. They spend a lot of time. It's a lot of work. Our job is not to blindly support everything that staff brings to us. Our job is to do what our residents are asking for us. And I understand we all talk to different people. However, position by position, I can absolutely say that, yes, some people would support an economic development officer, some people would support something else. In general, with no disrespect to staff or anybody at this township, I do not hear that we need to continue to hire more and more and more staff. And it's simply because those incremental dollar increases on people's tax bill make an actual difference. And if you don't understand that, Councillor Thompson, that is a major problem. And one further thing, if you are that upset about this budget, that you feel the need to lay it all on the line and have your moment to speak about it again, then I would hope that you stick with that and vote against it.
I have Councillor Garwood and Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I appreciate it. Deputy Mayor Cabral, nowhere did I say I wasn't supporting the budget. I'm not sure if you missed that in my statement. I can reread it if you wish, but I was quite clear in that sense. Secondary to that, I recall a meeting a couple weeks ago where 4 members of council had pre-written statements at a meeting. That is your right to do so. I have no problem with that. Just as I chose to sit down in my living room and write something out, that is my right to be able to do. I'm telling you right now, you will see when I vote how I choose to support or not support the budget. What I can tell you is I started out with, were there positives in this budget cycle? Absolutely. Do the positives outweigh? I don't know. I can't tell you that. I never said I was not supporting this budget. I actually came in today prepared to support this budget, but to share the same concerns that I shared during our roughly 15 to 20 hours worth of budget deliberations. It is my right to be able to sit up here and speak those concerns, just as every one of the 7 of us has that same exact right. I sat and watched as 4 members of council shared concern in regards to a previous discussion. I'm sharing that same concern, Deputy Mayor Cabral. But again,
I'm just gonna remind decorum of the table. We are using, I know we're using our official and professional titles, but I feel that it's becoming pointed, and I would just like it to remain about the issues that are before us and not at the individuals. I wasn't cutting you off. You can continue what you were saying. I just wanted to make sure that it didn't head down a path that.
thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And I apologize if I was pointed. By no means was that my goal here tonight. My goal here tonight, as it seems Councillor Thompson also has something pre-written, was to share concern. Do I agree with everyone up here all the time? No, none of us do, and that's okay. My statement is about the concerns that I have heard. As Councillor Alexander noted, we don't all talk to the same people. I agree with her. Absolutely. We do not all speak to the same people. The people that I have spoken to share concern that we are not investing in economic development. The people that I am speaking to are concerned that we are not investing in positions related to our library and others. I said I could go on. My goal was to have a 1-minute statement and read that out and be done with it. Clearly, that is not the case now because of accusations that I'm not supporting a budget. I told you that I was supporting the budget. I am supporting the budget because there are positives that live within it. There are concerns, and it's my right to share those. Thank you.
I have Councillor Fisher and Deputy Cabral.
I'll make my opinion brief. It's my understanding that we're here to support the majority of council. You know, if everybody else at this table, says yay to something and I say nay to it, I have to respect that. What I don't like, maybe in these 2 prepared statements, I'll say it, I'm sorry, and maybe a bit of a trend as well on council. I won't be chastised for my opinion, and I don't think any of the rest of you should be, pre or post decision. It's not right. I frequently disagree with any one of you, frankly, and we vote differently. But I have to respect the fact that that's what you believe. That's what you thought was best for the municipality and our residents. I don't necessarily agree with it, just like you 2 gentlemen have. I'll say it. It seems to me you didn't agree with portions of the budget, I'll say. But I think there's a line drawn and where we're chastising other members of council. And I have to say, and this is my opinion, gentlemen, I feel that you're chastising council right now. And that's where I feel, and I'm saying this respectfully, I don't think that's right. We can disagree and our votes can reflect that. But and you are absolutely allowed to have a prepared statement. You're right, but if we're being, I'll use the word again, chastised pre or post vote, I think there's something wrong with that. And I support council even when I disagree with the decision. I'm proud of that. Sometimes I don't like it. I walk out of here at the end of the evening thinking we shouldn't have voted that way, but I shrug it off. So I mean, I respect your opinions, but I maybe don't respect the way that it was put forth.
Councillor Moore. Okay, raise your hand up. Councillor Moore.
Yeah, I'll speak. but thank you. The only piece that I would like to clarify is that the Economic Development Officer was approved in last year's budget. So it wasn't 14 years or 13 years or 10 years that we've looked at the position and never approved it. We did approve it last year. But then it was rolled back because of the shortfall with the fees and charges study. So we decided at that time, I believe it was in April, to unfortunately take that back, that position. And then, of course, every year presents a new set of situations. And so this year, looking at the budget, I certainly support and would still vote the same way I did for everything. But, you know, and we all disagree sometimes, and that's okay. But I just wanted to remind you that that actually was approved.
Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. If really, to be quite frank with you on reflection, and maybe I spoke a little bit, and I do apologize, Councillor Garwood, if that's how it came about, but it just seems to be a bit of a trend where 2 or 3 items just keep coming back before council with respect to the newspaper and the direct flyer, and with respect to the Economic Development Officer, and with respect to the Springwater Marketplace. And if members of council feel that strongly about those 3 items, I'll tell you right now, I'm prepared not to support this budget going forward, and we can start off again at scratch.
Councillor Fisher?
Just adding on to what I said before, you know, I think we all have different perspectives from all of our different, I'd say, careers and lifestyles. For me, I mean, I take a look at the budget, and particularly in this present economic climate, and I can't say yes to just everything. That's my prerogative. When I take a look at the budget, I can tell you this from my business background, which is my background. It's not nursing, it's not teaching. I'm going to tell you, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? This is why I voted against it. But we're all allowed to vote against certain things, and we have to leave it at that. I think the biggest thing, you know, going back to what the deputy mayor said, we have these reoccurring topics that keep coming up, and I'm always a little bit baffled by it. And usually we deal with it in the moment, but we shouldn't have to deal with them over and over again. And those members of council should really respect the votes of council. It's done. It's over with until, you know, a year from now, we can reconsider it if you like. But we seem to be rehashing things that are important to some people, where others just let it go.
And before I do continue, there's been numerous reconsiderations at this table throughout our year. Actually, more, I think I've seen more in the first year than the last 9. And it's not always specific people. There's been reconsiderations of many things. I'm also going to, no, I'm not. I'm going to leave it. I had hands over this way. Is there anything additional to Councillor Garwood?
Thank you. And I just want to make a final comment. When I look at my statement, I mentioned no members' names. I didn't point it at any one member. My statement was concerns that I have with the budget. Did I list 500 items? No. Did we go through 500 items? Probably. The items that I have listed are items that I have heard from the community about their displeasure from watching these discussions. Just as I think we're all saying the same thing. You can vote however way you want to vote. I completely agree. We're not going to always agree, nor should we. We're not arguing that. We're arguing the fact that multiple members of council chose to share their final concerns before we voted most likely in favor of this budget. Again, not pointed at anybody, but it is our roles. Our communities put us here and elected us to sit here to have these conversations. And when the member feels an injustice is done, speak up about it. Doesn't mean we hold it up. Doesn't mean we threaten the budget. It just means that we share our opinion. That's all. I plan on voting in favor of tonight's budget because I think there are positives. But we're allowed to mention and highlight those concerns.
Anything further at this time? Deputy Cabral?
Mayor Coughlin, I don't want to belay it, but I mean, I think every member of council could sit here and say, hey, there were certain things that went through on that budget that I really didn't want to see. But there was one comment that was made with respect to Victoria. And I just wanted to point out that Victoria Street was in the 6-year capital plan. It appeared again in the 10-year capital plan. So to say that there's a number of residents on there that are not deserving of a paved roadway when they've always had gravel, much like some of the other gravel roads that we have here in Springwater Township that some members of council would like to see converted to hardtop, and what also in years gone by was a bit of a priority for the council of the day a number of years ago, to convert our gravel roads to hardtop for our farmers and for our rural residents. I think it's a tough one to say that some folks can have a hardtop road while other people cannot. Hardtop roads require less maintenance. Gravel roads require a lot of maintenance. Hardtop roads signify that we're in the modern age. People are welcome to Springwater Township. The roads are paved. It's open for business, however you want to frame it. Gravel roads, people turn left or right before they drive on them quite often. So I do take some exception to the fact that Victoria Road, did present some difficulty during the budget deliberations, but I think I'm respectful of the taxpayers, and I think taxpayers are quite respectful of other taxpayers, that everybody should be painted with the same brush and given the same opportunity. So that's my last comment.
Thank you. I agree that when a budget is a business plan, it's not something you support or don't support based on, did I get 100% of everything in there? I also have a prepared statement, as this is the first time I will be voting against a budget. This budget, in my opinion, reflects antiquated ideals, welcomes a union, and encourages our talent to seek employment elsewhere that values their worth. This budget places zero value on approved plans and strategic vision, and instead short-sighted whims. It simply replaces today's responsibility with tomorrow's burden. This is the 10th budget I've deliberated in Springwater. I've spent a decade at this table, and annually I hear it is a difficult year for our residents. And the words fiscally responsible used as a shield to evade progress, or as a shovel digging us into a deeper hole. We are elected to steer a ship, not row a boat. We are elected to govern a business, a multi-million-dollar corporation that is not immune to inflation, growth, and a war on talent, and is entirely susceptible to the consequences of a global pandemic that halted the MPAC assessment. Approving this budget is choosing to ignore the inevitable, choosing to place this corporation and future councils into a position of drowning rather than being best prepared. The budget that staff brought forward to be tabled was progressive and sustainable. And like previous budgets, this one does have aspects and initiatives I am excited to support. However, this is the first budget I cannot support. It's as if we're trying to save money by not changing the oil in our car. I cannot support this budget, and I will, because I believe standing still is moving backwards. And if there are no further, Deputy Cabral.
Actually, Mayor Coughlin, I would actually prefer to turn to Director Radigan through you and ask Director Radigan exactly how much was cut from the budget by not approving those specific program changes. Because that's what we're talking about, is an amount of taxpayer money for the most part. And to be quite frank, I don't think that much was actually cut from the budget this year, to be honest. And not hiring an economic development officer didn't mean that we let someone go. It just meant that we didn't move forward with that position again this year.
Thank you. And for clarification, looking for the original amount tabled, including program changes down and the difference between that and the 1.22. Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I will just go through what was originally brought forward as program changes. So we did originally table a decrease to the tax levy of negative 1.43%, and the blended rate was approximately 0.95%. And the program changes that were brought forward included that did not pass the November 22nd date, included the Economic Development Officer, which was a tax impact of 0.53%. Parks and Facilities Operator, which was the tax impact of 0.37%. Support Assistant for Public Works from part-time to full-time, which was a 0.12%. Assistant for People, Health and Safety and Learning, which was a 0.38%. The Community Services Librarian was a 0.37%. Thank you.
Follow on, Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Director Radigan. And with respect to that, I think it's also important for those watching and those that are paying attention. It was a long process for budget, but I think it's important to note that what we were trying to achieve as a council at that point in time was a specific percentage. So in order to do that, there were certain things that council determined were not moving forward, and other projects and other program changes that did move forward. And I think I'd be folly to believe that a budget, when it's presented, is 100% every single time. And that's one of the reasons why we have a council made up of different folks from different backgrounds to actually try and work the best they can to put a budget together to move forward for the following year. And I think, truth be told, Springwater Township, as far as being in a good stead and good financial position, I think we're fairly rock solid, to be quite honest with you, in comparison to other municipalities roughly our size. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Director Radigan, the percentage that was put forward by council, the target percentage that council as a whole put forward, was that direction given to staff?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to members of council. I believe that there was discussion at one of the deliberation meetings. However, there was no motion or resolution received by staff regarding this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, through the chair to Deputy Mayor Cabral, I'm curious about this target percentage, because I wasn't aware that there was a target percentage for council. Could you just elaborate as to how that was communicated to council and how I was left out of that conversation?
Thank you. Through Mayor Coughlin to Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson, I'm sure you were at the same meetings that I was at. I do recollect trying to achieve a 2%. Maybe I'm wrong, but that was my recollection. And I recall us moving down to actually attain that. So I was paying attention the entire time, so I don't know what was going on.
My apologies. And I do see that Councillor Fisher's hand is here. And I feel that when we're going in a bit of a roundabout, and at this time I am going to ask that if there's no amendments to the direction that's been provided, I do believe that every member of council has had an opportunity to speak. And at this time, if there is nothing to amend in this motion, I would like to see us call the vote. Clerk Ainsworth? Yes, there was no recorded vote called. So at this time, do you need me to reread the motion as there is no amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And those opposed? And that has carried. We are now moving on to 7.2, our water and wastewater rate. May I have a mover and seconder to get that on the floor, please? I have Councillor Fisher and Moore, and I hope to only read this once. that the report from the Director of Finance regarding the 2023 water and wastewater rate study dated September 6, 2023 be received, and that council approve the presented rate structure for water, including base monthly charge and increasingly block volume rate structure. That council approve the present rate structure for wastewater, including the base monthly charge and a constant volume rate structure. And the bylaw to approve the water and wastewater rates be presented for consideration at the December 20th, 2023 meeting of council for final approval, and that council provide one of the following options. Option 1, that council approve a 4% annual increase for water rates and a 10% increase for wastewater rates for the 2024 to 2028. Or option 2, that council approve a 3% annual increase from 2024 to 2025, 4% from 2026 to 2028, 5% every year thereafter in the water rates, and that council approve an 8% annual increase with front ending for the Elmville projects for wastewater rates. So I have option 1 and 2 in front of us. And do I have a mover? Oh, sorry, who did I have? Sorry, just Councillor Fisher. Is there, or any other member, but it was Councillor Fisher that I did turn to if there was an option that you would like to put forward, or we can have discussion before choosing that.
Oh, sorry, I was just getting on the floor.
Yeah, oh, no problem at all. Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. If that offer still on the table, I'd like to propose option number 1.
And at this time, I will ask for a seconder for option number 1. I have Councillor Alexander. Is there any discussion on this? I know we just had a lengthy meeting about it. Yes, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So through you to Director Radigan. The least sort of negative impact that I can see would be option 2 to our residents. So what would be the benefit then of option 1?
Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to Councillor Moore. The benefit of option 1, although it's the better of the two, it does get us closer to a reserve balance that potentially is higher than what we would see as opposed to option 2. But ultimately, based on our meeting earlier this evening, I do believe Daryl Apps did mention that we're not any further ahead, even with option 1, and we're less further ahead with option 2. So with a reserve of about 10 million and a reserve for water rates and a reserve of about approximately 5 million for scenario 1, we're not looking at the long-term sustainability of replacing all of that infrastructure that we're bringing on board. So keeping in line with ensuring that rates are still reasonable and that we can still provide for a reserve balance. That's why we are proposing option 1. Overall, I would say we should possibly consider higher rates, but I believe what we brought forward is a reasonable increase. Thank you.
Councillor Fisher.
Through you to CAO Schmidt, is there any benefit then in the front end loading or the front ending the Elmville projects for wastewater rates to us?
CAO Schmidt.
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Fisher. So Councillor Fisher, in my opinion, yes. Essentially what you're seeing is that that infrastructure that's being required to be constructed in Elmville would no longer fall on the backs, if you will, of the residents that are the benefiting property owners, if you will, that benefit from wastewater. Essentially, those costs would now be placed on the development community. So if the development community wants to come in and we need to expand our infrastructure, they're going to pay 100% for that, similar to what's happening in Midhurst and Hillsdale. So there is a benefit from that perspective.
Thank you. And after you, I do have a point of clarification as well.
Good. Just to clarify, then we would then take over that infrastructure afterwards. So the developer would put it in at their cost, and then we would then absorb that, just like in Midhurst. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And clarification, CEO Schmidt, earlier this evening, I think, and I could have heard wrong, that the developers front end the DCs, but then we pay back the DCs is what I heard. So while there is a benefit to the municipality, it would be short term because we would be repaying those DCs back to the developer.
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, my understanding, maybe I have a different understanding of Mr. Ibbs' comment. So what happens in Midhurst and in Hillsdale is no DCs are collected. The developers pay for 100% of the infrastructure. Any other developers that benefit from that infrastructure would have to cost share with the original developer that put the infrastructure in. So we have that in Yorkwood, for example, or Stone Manor Woods, where essentially water was provided by Snow Valley Highlands, if you will. And so there was a cost sharing agreement that was required to be entered into. So to me, that's the cost sharing agreement. If a developer comes in Elmville, wants to develop and needs to expand the wastewater treatment plant, we could enforce that they pay for that. And if there's additional developers that come on that want to use some of that capacity, they would have to then cost share and or repay infrastructure costs to the original developer.
And then just to follow on to that, with option one, the municipality's ability to move forward in a cost sharing agreement with a developer, that's still available. If our water and wastewater rates are being charged in that way, when a new development comes on, the municipality is not going to build the plant. It's going to be at the cost of the developers. So I'm just curious how one option highlights the front ending, but really there's no option whereby the municipality is going to be building a wastewater treatment facility. CEO Schmidt, and then I see Director Radigan.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Coughlin, through option one, the municipality would be building the infrastructure and collecting DCs to offset those costs. So that is the difference. Option one, we build. Option two, they build.
Thank you. And aside from an agreement with the developer.
Sorry.
I'm just looking for clarification because maybe I missed it, but in our last water and wastewater approval, I don't recall there being something about a developer building or front ending, and yet the exact same thing happened in Midhurst. So I'm just curious how something within our water and wastewater rates can prevent the municipality from entering into an agreement with a developer for infrastructure.
Through you, Mayor Coughlin. So I don't think I'm not saying this is preventing us from entering into an agreement. I simply was trying to state that I believe the way the scenarios were provided for is that scenario one considers kind of status quo, what we're doing in Elmville today, which is we're collecting DCs from that development community. So the township is collecting those monies and we're building the infrastructure. Option two would change that current process whereby the township would no longer be collecting development charges for infrastructure in Elmville, water, wastewater, and essentially the developer would then now have to pay for that. It doesn't preclude us from entering into that. So I think it's just the way that it's being presented to us, I think, is to show that in a way to try to lessen the blow, if you will, on the residents within that are on the water wastewater system. Option two would provide for a little bit of a break because those additional costs would not be borne by those individuals up front. The infrastructure costs, they would be borne by the developer. So those costs are taken out of the calculation.
Thank you. Additional comment, or I'm going to go to Deputy Cabral. Oh, additional comment, Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to members of council. Just to clarify, I don't believe there was any consideration given to redoing the development charges study. And if we were looking at Elmville developers to upfront those costs with a local service agreement, I do believe we would have to do a whole other background study in terms of regarding that, because currently we are collecting DCs. I'm not sure, I'm not 100% clear, but my understanding was that Mr. Epps did present scenario 2 on the basis that Elmville developers would front end those costs and they would receive credits as a result. This was not a trade-off of a local service agreement and a development charge. The idea would be that we would not have to go out and debenture and use up our annual repayment limit, from what I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Cabral and
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And that was my understanding as well, is that the Elmvale, when we looked at the DCs, there was a component specific to water and wastewater that the other DCs in the south end did not have, because their developments are moving at a, I guess, differently from what's happening in Elmvale. People are coming on to an existing facility that has already kind of been paid for. I kind of think that it makes it look like it's a little bit more appealing, option number 2, but I think it's a Band-Aid solution. Option 1, rip the Band-Aid off, let folks know this is how it's going to be as far as going forward, so that they have some sense of where they're going to be going forward. When I look at option 2 and it says, 3% increase and then a 4% increase and then a 5% increase, it's just escalating it in steps, but it becomes an increase every single year as opposed to 4%. And I know that next year is going to be 4 and the year after that's going to be 4. When you aggregate the two together, you end up with the same number at the end of the day. I kind of, as a homeowner, to be honest with you, I'd rip the Band-Aid off and go with number 1. And this is what I have to pay. This is what I have to pay. So that's my 2 cents.
Councillor Fisher.
Just a question through you to, I'm guessing CAO Schmidt, or Director Radigan. With option 1, we debenture the infrastructure, whereas with option 2, it is on the developer. So I guess that's the portion that although I do agree with just ripping off the Band-Aid as it comes to the amount, but as it comes to the infrastructure, if I'm understanding that correctly, option 1 is we debt finance it. Option 2, it's the developer. Am I correct? Am I oversimplifying it? I don't know.
Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Councillor Fisher, that is correct. And the idea would be that any carrying costs, so your interest and principal, would be paid for by the developer as well. So there are no costs that would be transferred to a taxpayer. However, with the township debenturing, we would be increasing our debt. And based on some of the projects that we do see coming down the road, we do have a limit or a capacity of what we can debenture. Thank you.
Thank you. And follow on and then Deputy Cabral. No, sorry, Garwood and then.
Just stating my opinion, I think given the fact that recently we have seen exactly that we will be pushing the limits of our debt financing, and with further developments coming on, I think that's a component for me that serves some importance. That's why I'm veering towards option 2, just because of that. I think there's just a little bit more to the story for our overall finances, over and above just the rates that go onto the consumer. So,
Deputy Cabral. Oh, Councillor Garwood, my apologies.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I think we also need to look at the number of developments as well from one end of our community to the other, right? I think we're often used to speaking about Midhurst developments and the mass number of them and number of homes that are coming online. Elmvale is probably 1% of that in reality to what is coming down the pipe. So I think that's something to also think about. But the reason that I had recommended scenario 1 or option number 1 is really looking at our reserve balance, understanding that water, it's pretty much a wash, regardless of scenario 1 or scenario 2. But on wastewater, there is, a $1.5 million difference over 10 years. But again, as Director Radigan had noted, we're still not getting ahead. We're still at status quo. Would the forward-thinking thing to do would be to come in at an even higher rate, but understanding that is difficult for residents to be able to obtain. And again, as a homeowner, that's something that would be difficult to budget. So I completely respect not coming in any higher, but I don't see us being forward-thinking if we're selecting the option that puts us behind.
I have Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I think what we're getting hung up here on is there any reason why the wastewater part in option 2 cannot be moved up in conjunction with option 1? Then I would suggest that if that's the piece that, because it's only specific to Elmvale, that if we move the second paragraph in option 2 and include that with option 1, I think that might move us forward, because the difficulty I have is with the first paragraph in option 2. I think it's disingenuine to nail people down the road when you might as well just tell them up front it's 4% per year, and then include the second paragraph in option 2 with option 1 as far as the Elmvale wastewater is concerned. Is that something that could be done? I would ask that as an amendment it would have to be in a friendly amendment.
An amendment to the amendment.
Yes.
Director Radigan, can we have comment on blending of the two options?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to members of council. Deputy Mayor Cabral, just wanted to clarify. So we're looking at the water rates at 4% and wastewater at 10%, and including front ending of the Elmvale. Okay, correct. Yes, that absolutely can be completed. It would just be providing direction through resolution, and in terms of when that project is nearing, we would definitely need to seek legal for just ensuring that they do front end to write some type of contract between the developers and the township to ensure they front end, and we would provide DC credits as a result.
Can I follow on, please? Thank you, Director Radigan. But if I look at option 2, I mean, the number there could be 4% and 10%. I mean, what we've done is we've taken for water, we've got option 1 that speaks to water and an increase for wastewater rates. We would have to, I guess, look at that. Option 2, I mean, in a nutshell, what we should have is option 2 should have had a 4%. There should be an option through it. 3 is what I'm saying. Option 3 would have had a 4% annual increase for water rates and a 10% annual increase for wastewater rates, with the exception of Elmvale, with this little piece in there. So that's what I'm proposing. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarity on that, the exception of Elmvale. So currently our white water and wastewater rates are township wide. There is no discrepancy between any plant. So is this suggesting that the residents of Elmvale would be paying a different rate? This is just that we're just adding the last part that says, and the front ending for Elmvale projects for wastewater. So we're tacking that onto the 10%. I saw a few hands go up okay. At this time, I would actually try to stick handle this one here. Okay, so let's turn. I need a seconder for your.
One more amendment.
Deputy Cabral.
Yeah, no, with respect to option 1, it does include the wastewater rates there, where option 2 does not. So option 1, that council approve a 4% annual increase for water rates. And then that council approve an 8% annual increase with front end for Elmvale projects, because up here you're doing, if we take option 1, everybody's going to pay a 10% increase for wastewater rates across the board. So we just need that little exception for Elmvale then, right?
And thank
So
you. I think just
state that way,
the
yes.
clarity for that, Deputy Cabral. So what you are suggesting is that Elmvale pays 8% and everybody else pays 10%, which is something that I don't even know that we could actually bill for.
That's exactly what's already here though in option 2.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is it's going to be 10% annual increase for wastewater rates for 2024 to 2028, and that council approve an 8% annual increase with front end loading for Elmvale projects for wastewater rates.
I'm going to turn to Director Radigan for a comment on that.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Deputy Mayor Cabral. I do apologize for the confusion, as that was not the intent. We only have township-wide water and wastewater rates. Option 1 was to provide for a 4% increase in water rates and a 10% increase in wastewater rates, and that's township wide. And option 2 was for council to approve almost a phased in approach for water. So a 3% from 2024 to 2025, 4% from 2026 to 2028, and 5% every year thereafter. So that's just for water. Wastewater rates would be an 8% annual increase township wide, with the exception of that those specific wastewater projects in Elmville to be front-ended by the developer. Unfortunately, we don't have a system that can allocate different rates to different areas within our municipality. So I hope that clarifies. Thank you.
I have, I'm gonna go to Deputy.
Yeah.
And then over to council.
I think I'm understanding what you're saying. And I think the part that provides a bit of confusion is the first paragraph in option 2 speaks only to the water rates. The second paragraph in option 2 speaks only to the 8% annual increase. That's across the board, I guess, with the front ending for Elmville projects for water rates. So if we take that paragraph and we put it in with option 1 and take out wastewater from paragraph 1, do we not end up with exactly what we're looking for?
I'm gonna try one more time. So the option, what I'm hearing is we're gonna stay with 4% for everyone and 10% for everyone. And then we're going to move with front ending Elmville projects for wastewater rates up to option 1.
You have to take this 10%.
I'm sorry.
This 10%'s not down here anywhere.
All right. So what I'm gonna do is provide clarity that option 1 did offer a 10% across the board wastewater rate. Option 2 presents a 8% wastewater rate across the township. Okay, so, all right, thank you. Clerk Ainsworth. Are you looking for, Clerk Ainsworth would like to know if you're looking for an 8% across the board or a 10% across the board? 10% across the board,
10%.
and we're just moving up that last little paragraph. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. Through the mayor, the motion that I've drafted is that option 1 and 2 be deleted, and then to add that council approve a 4% annual increase for water rates and a 10% annual increase for wastewater rates for 24 to 28, with front ending for Elmville projects for wastewater rates.
Thank you.
And question, Councilor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to CAO Schmidt. Something separate from this conversation, but last year during the budget, we set extra money aside or we had invested more money into the water and wastewater reserves. Do you remember that, Deputy Mayor Cabral? Because I remember having that conversation last budget.
There may have, through Mayor Coughlin, if that's all right. I think I do recall something like that, but the money would have had to come from water and wastewater. So would it have been just moving it between the reserves?
I'm just wondering if that was part of the study that we just heard the results of, or where that money went, or how much
Director
that accumulated.
Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Councillor Moore. The way the water and wastewater rate reserve works is any excess in that year goes into the reserve. You can't use tax levy funds to top up that reserve. So when we do report at year end, we usually budget for a surplus or a deficit in some cases. And certain wastewater areas do have a deficit that we project, but others are projecting a surplus. So at the end of the day, what happens with budget versus actuals, we do end up resulting in putting more aside. But what ends up happening is we may have more going into the reserve because we may not have done all the projects that were scheduled to be completed within that year. So that's not to say that that's extra funds. I look at it like whatever there is going into the reserve is pretty well committed for some type of project, because there are quite a few projects that need to be completed on the wastewater side. Thank you.
Follow on?
But I'm remembering specifically during the budget last year that maybe one or two things weren't approved, or we had decided that we would move money or more money into the water and wastewater reserves, not allocated to a project, but just because we knew in the future we were going to need more than we had available. So are you not remembering?
I think we actually raised rates.
Maybe.
This does sound
Thank you.
similar to last year. There used to be a 1% compounding for our infrastructure deficit gap. And then we put an additional 1% into that. So then it would be compounded. So that might be what you're recalling, but that wasn't specific to water and wastewater. Council, I have an amendment in front of us and I'm going to ask Clerk Ainsworth to reread it. Or I guess it's not an amendment, it's it is an amendment. Thank you. 12.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So the amendment would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows. Option 1 and 2 be deleted, and to add that council approve a 4% annual increase for water rates and a 10% annual increase for wastewater rates for 24 to 28, with front ending for Elmvale projects for wastewater rates. And I did have a mover and seconder as Councillor Garwood and Deputy Mayor Cabral.
Thank you for that, Council. Are there any further comments or questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That has carried, and we will go back to our main motion as amended. And all those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you. At this time, we will take a quick break. All right, we're about to begin. Thank you. All right, council, we are about to begin. Thank you. We are now moving on to item number 8, our action report items. We have 8.1 is our MZO. We have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. I have Deputy Cabral and Councillor Fisher. And this is our MZO 2023-001, the Remington Group Incorporated at 727 Bayfield Street North. And we have options before us, only 2 of them. That no moving things around. That the report from the senior planner regarding MZO 2023-001 dated December 6, 2023 be received, and option 1, that Council of the Township of Springwater endorses Remington Group's proposed request to locate a seniors medical campus on the lands known as 727 Bayfield Street through a provincial land use approval process. Or option 2, that Council of the Township of Springwater does not endorse Remington Group's proposed request to locate a seniors medical campus at the lands known as 727 Bayfield Street. And at this time, I'll open for any comments or questions. Councillor Fisher?
I like option 1. I definitely think our council should endorse this. It's a great use of the land up on top of Bayfield Street. It creates jobs and it contributes to our tax base. I definitely think our council should be behind it.
Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I recall this originally coming before us, a couple of times. I also recall that there was talk of it relieving pressure on some other medical facilities in the area, and that was part of the proposal that was presented. I also think it fits in very, very well with the MZO process, which is geared specifically at the higher end for housing, and seniors are mentioned in there too for their seniors homes, seniors housing. This here provides not only seniors housing, but also eventually palliative care, medical facilities on site too. So I'm happy to support option 1 on this. And I'm happy to see that this process actually did provide for public input. I read some of the comments from the public, and for the vast majority of them, I found them to be quite positive.
I need a mover then. I have Councillors Fisher and Moore moving option 1. Is there any further discussion at this time? Council, all those in favor? And that was carried unanimously. And now we have 8.2, the Downtown Elmville Hanging Basket Program. May I have a mover and seconder for the report regarding the Downtown Elmville Hanging Basket Program? I have Councillor Garwood and Councillor Alexander, that the report from the Manager of Recreation Parks and Facilities regarding the Elmville Hanging Basket Program dated December 6, 2023 be received, and that option 1, the Hanging Basket Program in Elmville continue, and that the township coordinate the purchase of the hanging baskets for the 2024 season and going forward. Or option 2, that the Hanging Basket Program in Elmville be revamped, and that the township install hanging baskets intermittently with banners on the light standard poles in Elmville. And I have Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'd first like to thank the Elmville District Garden Enthusiasts, EDGE, for coordinating the Elmville Hanging Basket Program for the past 9 years, and Focus Elmville prior to that. I'd also like to thank Manager Dean for preparing the report this evening. Staff did reach out to the BIA as noted in the report regarding the letter received from EDGE to discuss the Hanging Basket Program. The BIA supports the program continuing and believes it is very important for the beautification of Queen Street in downtown Elmville. The BIA has confirmed that they will be able to support in sharing information about the hanging baskets, again, as noted in the report. At our last BIA meeting, there was a preference for option number 1, which is expressing that the hanging baskets provided, the BIA expressed the hanging baskets provided for a vibrant and beautiful downtown throughout the spring and summer months. So our preference as a BIA, and my preference personally sitting up here today, would just see option number 1 move forward.
Any other comments? Councillor Alexander?
I'd just like to comment further on Councillor Garwood's option 1. I'm in favor of option 1 as well. I do think the hanging baskets look good in any town. It adds to the beautification, as you so eloquently said. What I would ask, potentially as a friendly amendment, if Councillor Garwood is okay with it, that potentially Manager Dean reach out to the Hillsdale Community Recreation Association. Hillsdale does this on their own in Hillsdale. They don't have hanging baskets, but they have potted baskets. I believe they're donated and someone waters them and does all that for the main street of Hillsdale. And I think if we are going to take it over as a township, it needs to be equitable across the township.
Comment, Manager Dean?
Can you hear me? Okay. sorry.
Again, I see there's gonna be like a little mic drop after this one, right?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through yourself to Councillor Alexander and the rest of council. Yes, we can reach out to the other programs. I do believe we do support in Hillsdale with some watering of those baskets, but I can reach out to, I do know who organizes that, so I can reach out to them.
Council, is there anything further at this time? So we do have an amendment, and I believe that would just be a friendly amendment. Yes. It's up to council. Thank you. So that is a friendly amendment to include the communication to the Hillsdale CRA. All right, council, all those in favor of option 1, and that has carried. And the main motion as amended. Council, all those in favor? And that has carried. May I have a mover and seconder for our action reports, please? I have Councillors Moore and Fisher. That action reports items 9.2 through 9.7 be received and that the recommendations contained therein be approved as presented. I have 9.2, the 2023 46 iOS Tandem Truck Tender Award. 9.3, the 21 iOS 2.75 ton pickup trucks for the tender award. 9.4, the speed reduction on Old Orchard Road. 9.5, the Anton Mills subdivision security reduction. 9.6, the Elmville Meadows Phase 2 Stage 3 security reduction request. And 9.7, an agreement renewal with the Floss Agricultural Society. And we will be dealing with 9.7 separately, as there was a disclosure of interest. Are there any other items 9.2 through 9.6 to be pulled? Seeing none, we will now be approving 9.2 through 9.6 with the exception of 9.7. All those in favor? And that has carried. And at this time, we will deal with 9.7. We are now moving on to 9.7. May I have a mover and seconder to get the report on the floor? I have Councillors Fisher and Deputy Cabral and Councillor Garwood in conflict. That the motion from the report from the Manager of Recreations, Parks and Facilities and the Manager of Legislative Services Clerk regarding the agreement renewal for the Floss Agriculture Society dated December 6, 2023 be received, and that a bylaw to enter into the agreement with the Floss Agricultural Society for use of the Elmville Arena for Fall Fair, use of the Elmville Barn and grounds maintenance be presented at the December 6th meeting for consideration. Are there any questions or comments on this? Seeing none at this time, I would like to thank our clerk and our Manager Dean and also the Floss Agricultural Society. Through this, we were actually able to pull numerous agreements into one, which will move us forward in a much better fashion. I think that it also was a great endeavor with a partnership with the Floss Agricultural Society. So thank you very much for bringing all their concerns into this as well. So council, all those in favor? And that has carried. We have our information reports. May I have a mover and seconder for the information reports, please? I have Councillor Moore and Deputy Cabral. That the reports item listed herein be received for information, and it's a update on the voluntary community contribution agreements, and 2, the Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee recommendation regarding the community hub. Are there any comments or questions on these? Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I just wanted to speak to the contribution piece in regards to part of that process, and I do want to thank CAO for putting together that comprehensive report. I think part of the issue for that type of an agreement was the perception that there were 2 separate pieces as opposed to some form of a connection. So going forward, I would ask that when that comes up, that the majority of it takes place in an open session of council. The finer legal details can then take place in a closed session. That would be where I would like to go, so that there's transparency with respect to the public understanding where the voluntary contribution comes from and how it was arrived at. Part of the issue that I struggled with was that the 2 pieces in this last one showed up on an agenda, but there was no real connection between them. Even when you read the 2 documents, they didn't really tie one to the other. So that's the piece that I struggled with. And I do appreciate the report. It does certainly provide the information that if anyone was to read it and glean it, they see that there was nothing untoward with respect to it. So anyway, I just would like going forward that might be a little bit more appropriate, and then we wouldn't, be struggling with whether or not we can vote on one piece and not vote on the other. And that's the issue we ran into last time. Thank you.
Councillor, are there any further comments on either? Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I just wanted to comment on the second item there. So I guess that's the Cultural and Heritage Advisory Committee recommendation regarding the community hub. I did mention to the group that I would bring this forward, understanding most folks have probably read what was on the agenda there. But in summary, the Cultural and Heritage Advisory Committee has a working plan moving forward over the next few years. And as a part of that plan, there's been lots of discussion around the community hub and how we see culture fitting into future spaces. Understanding we are not at a stage yet to be speaking about internal rooms and walls and designs. Again, it is just the committee's hope and desire to be involved in those discussions moving forward. I think as we've spoke about it, the committee and its various new members have a lot of great and interesting backgrounds in regards to what they can bring to the table to ensure that culture and heritage is at the forefront in our hub designs and plans moving forward, and a community space of sorts would be provided for various diverse community groups, as well as their desire to remain involved in the planning stages. So I just wanted to make that mention.
Thank you. Seeing no more hands, all those in favor? And that has carried. At this time, we'll move on to our development updates from our CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So a couple updates here. So if we start in neighborhood 1, which is the Carson Road, Midhurst Valley area. So house closings continue in the mixed subdivision, and just for council's just to clarify with council and to ensure that when residents call in, snow removal is the responsibility of the developer in that subdivision for at least now for this winter. Thompson lands, which are the lands just south of the mix subdivision, topsoil stripping and earthworks continue. Fill materials actually being moved off this site, or some materials being moved off this site to the utility campus lands to help assist with the construction of the ultimate wastewater treatment plant. The commissioning of the interim wastewater treatment plant is ongoing, and we've been advised by the developers that the tender has closed for the ultimate wastewater treatment plant, but at this time, no contractor has been chosen, and no contract is in place as of yet. And just lastly, on that side of Midhurst, if you will, the roundabout at Wilson and Carson is now open. And I understand the county will be looking at correcting some deficiencies come the spring of 2024. So switching gears over to the Midhurst Heights subdivision on the east side of Midhurst. Mr. Webster provided a bit of an update, but just to maybe provide further clarification to council, earthworks are complete in their first phase of their subdivision. Site servicing is definitely well underway, and about 70% of the roads have been paved. And as mentioned, the water treatment plant and sewage pumping station are under construction as we speak. And that's my update for this evening. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'm not seeing any questions or comments. Deputy Cabral with our county update.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'm actually going to scroll down here because for once, county actually did provide one. Waste collection schedule changes taking place week of December the 4th, which is now. Unfortunately, I can't tell you what you're supposed to put out and what you're not supposed to put out because it's not across the board. But I would suggest to residents that they check to make sure that their bins are going out at the appropriate time. If you don't have the app from the county, I suggest you get it, or at least get put on their email list so they can remind you each week whether you're putting out organics and garbage or whether you're putting out organics and recycling. But households in zone 2, if you're in zone 2, will skip a garbage week, December the 4th to the 7th. Then they'll have 2 consecutive recycling collection weeks. So
I'll save you some
take
breath
it
here.
from there. Go ahead.
The zones that are affected are not within the boundaries of Springwater.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know where the zones are. I just know where my garbage is and when I have to put it out. They also did the draft county budget and they approved it. I think it was in the neighborhood of $746 million in around there. It was very substantial. Community settlement strategy. They're still working on that to support newcomers to Simcoe County. And just recently, if you were paying attention to the news, they did have a bit of an evening to promote newcomers and invite them into our community. And it was surprising to see just how many newcomers there are that make Springwater Township and Simcoe County at large their residents. Going forward, where was the next one here? Special collections came up, and this was to deal with textiles and some other things that the county currently does. They're going to continue the batteries. But I think textiles and electronics, they're going to probably not continue to do that. And they'll still be accepted at the recycling and the waste management locations, the dump and that, free of charge, but there won't be dedicated pickups anymore. There wasn't enough folks participating to really make it cost effective. So I guess they'll revisit that down the road. If you've been reading the newspaper, the Lake Simcoe Regional Airport shares purchase, the city of Barrie held 10% of the shares, and the county had approved the purchase of those 10% shares to come back to the county, which would then make the county the 100% shareholder. And that brings me to the end of county updates. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Municipal updates. Are there any updates from Councillor Thompson?
I'm a big fan of Santa, and he's going to be in our area for the next 2 weeks, starting this Friday at Minising at the tree lighting this Friday evening, and then Saturday evening in Anton Mills for the tree lighting, and then Saturday or Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock for the Santa Claus parade. Also on December the 16th, Santa will be at our national award-winning library, the Springwater Library. He'll be at the Elmville branch at 10:30 doing story time. And then at the Midhurst branch at 1 p.m. Doing story time, and registration is required for both of those events. I plan on spending a few minutes with Santa at one of these events. And on my list to Santa is an EDO officer for the Springwater Township.
And Counselor Alexander.
I would, this past Saturday, sorry, it was a busy weekend. Deputy Mayor Cabral and I were able to attend the Hillsdale tree lighting ceremony, which was quite lovely. I'd say there was a couple hundred people out. Beautiful tree. The kids choir sang from the school. Very, very nice evening. So thank you to them for putting on such a great event. This Friday is the Phelpston wagon ride. And we've kind of combined, we've always done a wagon ride and we fill the wagon up, take the kids through all the subdivisions of Phelpston to look at all the pretty lights, come back for hot chocolate. Over COVID, we changed that and did a car parade. So this year we're combining the two. So you'll do the wagon ride and then anybody who wants to join for the second part of it will line their cars up behind the wagon through Phelpston style. We'll go through the neighborhoods. And so anyways, it is always a very fun event. So I hope lots of people come out to enjoy.
Thank you, Counselor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Bear with me, I have a couple items I want to talk about. The first being a few Elmville CRA events. On November the 25th in the morning, the Elmville CRA partnered with the Elmville Library and we hosted our first drop-in shop. It was an opportunity for parents to drop off their children, enjoy a couple hours of peace or shopping in the community, either one. We had 14 families come on out, which was fantastic. And all the funds raised went directly back into the CRA. Later that evening, we hosted our first turkey bingo event at the Elmville Community Hall. We had 74 attendees, which was incredible. And thank you to Mayor Coughlin for coming on out. We raised over $600 for the CRA that evening, which was amazing. We had 14 turkeys donated by various businesses and members of the community. And a really nice item to mention that most were donated back to either the food bank or to local churches to host holiday dinners and meals. So I thought that was pretty amazing. So that was a really neat evening. And we have already been requested to have multiple a year. So this is now the CRA's thing in Elmville is turkey bingo moving forward, folks. So expect another one coming in the spring sometime. Again, speaking of busy weekends, I guess this last weekend on December the 1st, the Elmville Christmas tree lighting happened. We believe there was somewhere over 500 attendees that showed up to our tree lighting, which was absolutely incredible. The four corners there was full. There was not much space to move. We had the EDHS band, the Elmville Maple Syrup Festival Committee runs the event, hot chocolate, hot apple cider, and there was quite a few donations, both financial and in food towards the food bank as well. So it was a really, really neat evening. And thank you to a few members of council for coming out to that as well. On Sunday, December the 3rd, the Elmville Santa Claus Parade took place. Mayor Coughlin and I represented the municipality and had a fantastic time connecting with a lot of great residents. The Elmville Lions Club always does a great job running that event, so I wanted to thank them. And the Elmville CRA finished second in their float entry in the parade as well. So that was pretty neat. I wanted to congratulate the Midhurst CRA for their tree lighting, and I won't take that away from you if you want to mention it, Councillor Fisher. But that was a great showing and a beautiful tree. And my last item I wanted to mention was a little bit of an update on the EDHS partnership facility. As we know, that's been a topic of discussion and will be a bit further on as well on the agenda. Tuesday and Wednesday evenings, there is pickleball one night and basketball the other. I have on good authority that there is people actually waiting in line to get in the building to play these sports. So you always worry, is this going to continue to have a huge popularity throughout the winter months? And clearly it's only growing. So I wanted to thank Manager Dean and her team and everyone that works so hard to ensure that program continues forward. It's an incredible resource for our municipality. Thank you.
You forgot to mention that I won a turkey at Turkey Bingo. I got to yell bingo. It was pretty great. And I did. Well, the Presbyterian Church for their dinner. Yes, Councillor Fisher.
Well, Councillor Garwood, you were a tough act to follow, my friend. I just wanted to thank the Midhurst CRA actually for our tree lighting. They did a great job, all the volunteers, and I thank the members of council who came, Councillor Garwood and our mayor. It was a great tree lighting. We had our new fire pit outside. We're really excited. I think it added a lot to the event, and I can say, although we didn't have the numbers of Elmville, I'm very impressed. We figured we had about 150 people from the community in, and the weather was a whole lot more conducive for it this year. Last year, as Councillor Garwood would tell you, it was not that nice, and so it was a big improvement over this year. And I'm definitely going to make my way to Phelpston. This sounds like something I cannot miss. Sounds like it's right up my alley, and I will be the Midhurst CRA will actually be putting a float in the Anton Mills Parade. So I look forward to seeing you there.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'm actually glad that Councillor Garwood brought up the pickleball thing. I know that that was something that was growing and growing. But going back to last year, I was just curious through you to Manager Dean. Prior to us opening up EDHS facilities for pickleball again, some of the residents were playing, I believe, in either one or both of the local schools in the gym. Do you know whether or not that's still going on? And if there's that kind of a response at ours, maybe we should look at seeing whether or not that the schools gymnasium, if it's still available, not necessarily for us to undertake to rent it out, but maybe let some of the groups know that it is available again if they wanted to play pickleball there as well. Do you know if they're still running it at the school?
Manager Dean.
Through Mayor Coughlin, to the deputy mayor, from my understanding, they're not. That group is now playing at the EDHS gym. Those I shouldn't say all, majority of Simcoe County schools are available to rent their gymnasiums through the school board and through the school board contact. We have mentioned that to a few groups that are looking for additional times or more kind of private bookings, not truly open drop-in bookings. So whether that be at, I know, for example, there's a group that plays volleyball in Minising, and it's a locally organized group that rents the Minising school gym throughout the year.
Great, thank you. Not seeing any more updates. We will now move on to our notices of motion, and I would need this one's moved by Councillor Thompson, and I would recall a seconder, please, for this one. Councillor Garwood, and I will now turn to Councillor Thompson for his notice of motion.
Would like staff to be directed to seek legal advice pertaining to the potential cost recovery regarding the fire hall project, and that further that a closed session be scheduled for review of the legal advice once obtained.
Pretty straightforward. Any other, Councillor Fisher?
Just a comment. I've also wondered about cost recovery, and I think I brought it up in previous meetings for the previous bidder of the fire hall. And I wonder, and I put this to staff, anyone on staff, I just wonder if there's any chance of actual cost recovery, or would we be, I mean, to put it this way, would we be trying to get blood from a stone? Would it not be worth our time and the legal expense to do it? Or is this something that you see that would maybe be feasible, maybe would yield some sort of compensation?
Not to put you on the spot, I think that's the intention of the report. But sorry, that's okay. CO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Councillor Fisher. I would agree with Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Fisher. I think the motion that's before you tonight would essentially do that. I think you would have the opportunity to have legal here and maybe ask some of those questions and what their, I guess, probability of recovery might be as it relates to this matter.
Any other questions on notice of motion? Deputy Cabral.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And it's not that I don't necessarily support reaching back out to see if we can recover some costs. It's just that I think that was part and parcel to the discussion we originally had, and CEO Schmidt had actually said that might be something we could do going forward. I'm just wondering, I would like to see a report come back from staff regarding it. I don't know whether or not it might be better rather than have a closed session be scheduled for review of the legal advice, or whether what we should be doing is simply convening a session with the lawyer so that they can speak to counsel directly, instead of, having staff go through the whole process of putting together a report, reaching out to legal, coming back to council. Next thing you know, we're back in the closed session meeting with legal. So although I agree with you, Councillor Thompson, I'm just suggesting that staff be directed to set up a closed session meeting so that council can ask the question directly to the legal person, and maybe staff could be directed to provide the lawyer or legal service with the appropriate documents for them to review prior to our session. Does that sound reasonable?
CEO Schmidt?
Through you, Mayor Coghlan, to the deputy mayor. Reading the motion, I think that's how I'm kind of interpreting it, to be quite honest with you, is that we would be seeking legal to provide them with the information and then have them come back and to a closed session and have a discussion with council. And although it's Councillor Thompson's motion, I don't want to speak for you, but I think that's how I'm interpreting it.
Councillor Thompson, and I have a follow-on by Deputy Cabral, and then I.
Yeah, through you to CO Schmidt. Yeah, it's a simple procedure. I don't want this to be elaborate. It's just a simple question. I'm sure this is not something new in the realm of what we do. And I think it's our responsibility, if we can recover some of our taxpayers' money, I think that would be prudent.
And I saw Councillor Fisher.
I do agree. I think, sorry, I do agree. I think, attempting to, or at least exploring the recovery of some of that money would be prudent, because there was lost time as well, which I think cost us eventually. I think it was to the tune of 1.6 million. I would ask, though, that when the lawyer does come, they've been briefed on it fully, so that they come prepared to answer questions, not sort of be educated on the spot, right? So, I would ask that happen.
Not seeing anything further. All those in favor? Oh, my apologies, Deputy.
No, that's
Okay.
okay. I'm happy
Okay.
with that, if that's the will of council. I just was, when I first looked at this, it seemed to me that staff was going to be reaching out to legal for advice and then coming back to us with a report, and then having a closed session with the legal advice that you'd gotten. Whereas basically what you've outlined is kind of what I envisioned. Go give them the material. Let's have a meeting and ask the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that has carried. We'll now move on to 12.2, the EDHS funding dollars. And I have this moved by Councillor Garwood, and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Alexander, and I will now turn to Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coghlan. Whereas the balance of the Anvil District High School EDHS fundraising efforts currently sits at $242,215.44. And whereas the EDHS expansion project has been completed, be it therefore resolved that staff report back on the history of the Anvil District High School expansion project and fundraising initiatives, specifically with the community fundraising dollars, specifically what the community fundraising dollars were originally raised for, and further, that staff provide options on where the funds could be directed and spent for community benefit projects or programs within Elmville, including conducting community consultation to seek feedback from residents, and that staff consider township-owned facilities in the village of Elmville for potential options and upgrades to utilize further for community recreation and benefit.
Thank you. And
thank you, Mayor Coghlan. Just a few items I wanted to mention. In conversation this evening, I am going to be proposing an amendment to my motion. I will be requesting that the last two lines of the motion, so the further that staff provide options on where the funds could be directed, and that staff consider township owned facilities, I'm going to ask that those be removed for the time being. I will be bringing that piece forward as a secondary motion in the future once the initial report has been brought back on the history of the Elmville District High School expansion project for fundraising initiatives. So then the motion would strictly be focused on just a report on the history of the expansion project and what the funds were initially utilized for. Clerk Ainsworth, I did email you over what the new motion would be just now. And again, just in addition to that, just to provide a little bit of background here, over the past year, there's been many inquiries. I know Councillor Alexander and I have talked about this project in depth multiple times. There's been many inquiries from the community in regards to the funds that were raised. I believe a bit of history would be useful for all members of council, myself included, because again, I wasn't on council when the initial agreement was drafted and agreed upon. So the idea here would be to slow down a bit, understand what the purpose of the funds were initially utilized for, the current state of that project, and then from there, have a discussion around the table here. And then I will be bringing a future motion forward in regards to next steps that come from that conversation, whether that be, again, going out for public consultation, going back to community members, speaking with the initial fundraising group. I can advise, I have spoken with the folks that led the initial fundraising efforts, and do support the motion that I am bringing forward here tonight. Again, the goal is just a bit of education and summary moving forward.
Clerk has advised that that would be an actual amendment that would need to be brought forward because it's a, what did you say, material change. So that would be moved by who? Councillors Fisher and Moore. All in favor? Oh, so I thought you were asking. My apologies. This was moved and seconded and there is comment. My apologies for that. Councillor Moore.
I'm just wondering why we would include the last two paragraphs when truly we're just asking for a staff report to come back on the history of the funds being raised. I don't know why the third paragraph about providing options on where the funds could be directed or spent for community benefit projects or programs, including conducting community consultation. I don't mind the consultation piece, but I think it's preemptive to add options when we really don't even know what the history is.
Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to Councillor Moore. So my amendment was to remove those specific items that you were just noting right now. Sorry. Yeah, paragraphs. So we would be removing those items, just getting the initial information, coming back for a discussion, and then going forward from there.
And the amendment was moved and seconded by Councillors Fisher and Moore because I got it wrong, but they're still nodding. So there we are. So the amendment, Deputy Cabral.
I'm sorry, I'm wondering if would I be able to amend it after it's been amended? Or can I ask for a friendly amendment? I think Councillor Garwood might be receptive. Basically, that last piece with removing those would be to go back to the previous one where you have the word "and." So it says fundraising dollars were originally raised for semicolon and manner in which collected and records kept. That's the only piece I would like to add in there. Thank you, ma'am.
Just gonna keep looking this way. Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fisher.
Through you to Councillor Garwood, and maybe I should be ignoring this because you did remove it, you know, so, but is the intent to get a report then to find out what you would like to do with the money afterwards? Through you to Councillor Garwood.
Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through to Councillor Fisher. Great question. I think the intent is still up in the air, right? So I don't think that I can unilaterally answer that question. I can tell you what my thoughts would be when members of the community are coming forward and saying, there's $250,000 sitting here. What is it going to be utilized for? Is it going to be invested back into the school project? Is it going to be invested back into recreation facilities within the Elmvale community? Those are all questions that are up in the air at this point in time. So I think from conversation, it would be to have the report come back as noted with the history, and then to have that discussion around this table. Just a bit of history without getting into what the report's going to entail is that the funds were raised by members of the community, businesses within the community. And then they were turned over to the municipality. Again, I'm skimming over a lot of details here, but just to give the Coles notes, for safeguard, to act as a bank. Really, that's what it ended up being. And since that project is now completed, that facility is open and we talk about it often, there are still a large portion of funds sitting there. So whether those funds need to be A, utilized, B, returned, C, I could keep going down the list. The funds are not benefiting anybody by sitting there. And the businesses and the members of the community that have donated almost $250,000 are saying, it's been a few years, where's that money? We want it back put into the community. And that's what the fundraising group as well is saying, is we want to see some action happen with these funds. It's a lot of money that can be utilized well in our municipality. So my motion here was trying to initially encompass all of that at once. I am very much amendable to stripping that back and taking baby steps. And I believe that's the approach that we're taking with this amended motion.
Follow on.
I'll be quick. I guess my potential issue is this, you know, if I were to give to a charity, because this was a fundraiser, right? If I were to give to it and it were to sit there and somebody were to come to me and say, hey, I've got something, it's also a charity, but it's a little bit different. I want to now move your money over to it. I just wonder how people would feel about that, you know, so I do worry about that. It is a large amount of money. I feel that, is there a way that we could spend it for what it was originally intended for, or at least in the place that was originally intended for?
And I think all of these are going to be answered in the report that we are asking for. Final comment, Councillor Garwood?
You got it, Mayor Coughlin. Thank you. And through you to Councillor Fisher. I don't disagree with you. I think exactly as the mayor noted, we can have that discussion once the report comes back and it's been fulsomely reviewed. I think there's a lot of hearsay in regards to the sole purpose of fundraising dollars. This was quite a while ago, so I believe it would be useful for all of us to have a bit of a refresher to ensure that we're best utilizing the funds in an appropriate way with the initial intention. So if that means spending them in the original facility, even though the facility's done and we don't own that facility, then wonderful. If that is the desire of the community, then I believe that we need to push forward whatever the community wants and those that initially donated. It shouldn't be our decision necessarily. I believe we're safekeeping those funds. It should be driven by those who donated and the community that it will benefit.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that's for the amendment. And then we're going to do this again. Yeah, no problem, Mike. Back over to Clerk Ainsworth, please.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to council. The amendment would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows: delete paragraphs 4 and 5, and then add to the end of paragraph 3 the words manner in which the funds were collected and records kept.
All those in favor? That is carried. And we are back to the main motion as amended. Does anybody require us to read it again? All those in favor? And that has carried. We are now moving on to item 12.3, and it's a notice of motion regarding the Elmville BIA's request for using the Elmville community parking lot. I have this moved by Councillor Garwood and seconded by Councillor Thompson, and I will now turn to Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Whereas the Springwater Farmers Market Elmville has been a staple in our community for 14 years, previously managed by local volunteers and subsequently managed by the Township of Springwater. And whereas the Springwater Farmers Market Elmville brings farm fresh food closer to residents while providing a gathering place for local artisans, musicians, and community groups. And whereas the Elmville BIA believes the Springwater Farmers Market Elmville assists in the economic growth in the community by attracting visitors to the Elmville downtown core. And whereas the Elmville BIA passed a resolution at their board meeting of November the 23rd, 2023 to take over operations of the farmers market starting in 2024 to ensure its continued success. Be it therefore resolved that the council for the township of Springwater permits use of the Elmville Community Hall parking lot to the Elmville BIA for operation of the farmers market and other community initiatives on Thursday evenings from June to September annually. And further, that staff be authorized to work with the Elmville BIA to determine appropriate closure times to accommodate for setup and tear down of the weekly event.
Thank you. Counselor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So just a bit further in regards to this motion, as noted on at the November 23rd meeting, I did bring a motion forward to our BIA meeting to take over operations of the farmers market. This was unanimously passed with our group. The Elmville BIA is incredibly eager for this opportunity. While we understand the preference would have been for the municipality to continue operation, the BIA definitely sees how this market provides an economic boost for our local businesses. The plan is to adjust the market time from Friday mornings and afternoons and move it to Thursday evenings from 5 to 8 p.m. The idea is also to create some sort of a evening in the village where we have whether it be live music, local businesses potentially staying open later into the evening, car shows, bike shows. There's a lot of options that are being thrown out there. Of course, this was just brought forward 2 weeks ago to the BIA, so the specifics are not quite there, but the BIA is eager to invest. The BIA does plan on hiring somebody as well to support with this initiative, understanding it is a large undertaking, and sees that the investment from the BIA and from the levy that our businesses provide will go to good use. So I'm hopeful that council supports the use of this parking lot, and I hope to see each of you out at our market next year.
Thank you. I have Counselor Moore and then Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through to you too, Counselor Garwood. So congratulations on creating what I think will be a really positive contribution to your community. I think the farmers market in the evening is really going to be successful. I'm really crossing my fingers for you guys. And of course, I'll support using the parking lot for that. The only question I have is when you ask about using the parking lot for the Elmville BIA for operation of the farmers market and other community initiatives, it's really vague. So I don't know what you're asking me.
Counselor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through to Councillor Moore, and thank you for the kind comments in regards to the market's future. I appreciate that. Yes, community initiatives, the BIA hasn't determined what those initiatives will be, whether that be live music, whether that be a car show, whether that be parking. Again, it can be a variety of items. The main focus is that the lot is blocked off as it would be traditionally for the market, where part of the market is utilized for parking. That evening in Elmville, there's also an Elmville bike night that happens on our main street. So the idea would be to also incorporate those folks potentially to provide space for them. Again, the specifics are not yet determined, but the main focus would be the market. We just wanted to put that in there to ensure that if the BIA was to partner with other initiatives, like I've noted, there would be space permitted and it would fall within the rules.
Counselor Moore.
Thank you. I would kindly ask then that you remove that for now until you have a clearer picture of what that's going to look like. It could be many things. I don't even know what the township would think about it being so vague of what that use would be. Secondly, when you also ask about accommodating setup and tear down of the weekly event, are you then expecting staff to be there in the evenings to do that, or who will be doing that? Thank you.
Thank you. And I, Counselor Garwood, and then Manager Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through to Councillor Moore. In regards to the closure times, I would prefer to defer to Manager Dean in regards to the previous structure that was completed before the municipality took over the market. Our BIA team has committed to doing those closures ourselves. I'm just not sure if those are permitted by taking jobs away from existing staff. So I would have to defer to staff to answer the rest of that question.
Thank you. And I don't know if that would be yeah. Manager Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through yourself to Councillor Garwood and the rest of council. So when the farmers market was run by the Market Association or the Market Group, they would close the parking lot off approximately 6 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock. They would use some pylons and or barricades or caution tape that were kept in the community hall parking lot. There is a bin there that is the previous market's bin, and it's always been used as storage for items for the farmers market and some other events in the township. So those items would be located in there. A fire route was kept clear within the parking lot. So there was still the perimeter fire route available. It kind of just denoted the spots being closed so that someone may not park there overnight and be there in the morning when it was a morning market. So in this case, then I would assume basically the parking lot would be open after the market on the Thursday night.
In clarification, Councillor Moore.
Thank you so much. So I'm not clear then, Manager Dean, if it would be staff doing the setup and takedown on the Thursday evenings, or if you would just be providing supplies for the Elmvale BIA to do that on their own.
Manager Dean.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through yourself to Councillor Moore. So previously, when it was run by markets and the market manager, staff did not perform the duties. Staff did perform the duties last year. So I would leave that direction up to council for future endeavors.
I'll go back to Councillor Garwood for the attend.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And if that is the case, that is exactly what the BIA is prepared to do, is to take care of that ourselves. As long as that is approved by staff and that is a permitted action, the BIA will be absolutely fine to close the lot, open the lot and set up the tents and take down the tents and tables ourselves.
I'm wondering then if the amendment might include wording that would suggest in the same fashion as the previous partnership with, so that it didn't leave a vague, so that we know it's not staff that are expected to be there on site. It was just the in-kind of the bucket in the shed. So I think that might alleviate it. We stipulate that it would be the same or as pre-existing partnerships with user groups or. Councillor Garwood, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And just to clarify again, if you, I know it's very specific, but if you do look at the motion, it does say that staff be authorized to work with the Elmvale BIA to determine appropriate closure times. So it's not necessarily saying that we're asking staff to set up. We're saying that we want the BIA to be able to communicate with staff to be able to ensure that the lot can be closed at 4:30 on Thursdays moving forward through to 8 o'clock at night.
To develop the policies. CAO Schmidt, and then I have Councillor Fisher and Deputy.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just listening to the conversation and just wondering if there's a consideration for council to just add to the last paragraph and tear down of the weekly event by the Elmvale BIA.
Where were you 20 minutes ago? I was teasing. Thank you. I have Councillor Fisher.
There, I'll make it brief. I'm in full support. I think this is great. I think that having the BIA, they have a vested interest in the business in the downtown of Elmvale, their businesses and all businesses. So I think because of their vested interest, they'll do very well with it. I also think the time change is very good. I think it's a time when a lot of people can go out and enjoy the summer evenings, frankly, in Elmvale. So I think it's well placed. I was going to mention having the BIA doing the setup and tear down, as many of us would do with our events. That's been addressed, but I wish you the best of luck with it, and I'll certainly be out there. Yeah.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and I also want to congratulate Councillor Garwood. I know that the BIA had looked at taking over the farmers market previous when I was sitting on the committee, and unfortunately they had too many other things on the go, were stretched a little bit thin, weren't able to. So I certainly congratulate you for getting them on board. I think it'll be good for them to actually be involved. And I think that going forward, it does provide that the market could actually survive, and hopefully it will survive continuing going forward without the Springwater Township having a thumb in it, let's say. The only concern I have, and I don't know how this is going to be mitigated or logistically going to be worked on, is with the old market, they used to put out the pylons and the barricades in order to prevent people from parking there. Your situation now on Thursdays will be that people use that place to park for carpools. It used to present some problems even for snow removal, but that was early in the morning. So as the day progresses, and I'm not sure, but I'm just wondering if there's a way or proper signage, some way for you to be able to utilize maybe consistently one part of the parking lot, so that hopefully there's not going to be a bunch of cars parked there. At the same time, I have to be cognizant of the fact that it's our own residents that use it for carpooling. So has to be a bit of a mutual arrangement done there. And I don't know whether you've thought about that, but you're shaking your head, so maybe you have.
I'm sure there's going to be a bit of trial and error at the beginning, and there are other communities that do host evening markets. Clearview, our neighbor, has a Thursday night evening market, and I'm sure they would maybe have some advice for us if we find ourselves in a situation. But I think that moving forward, sorry, I can't even think right now. Councilor Harwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and through you to the Deputy Mayor. Yes, so this is something that did come up at our meeting. Of course, the BIA would seek staff approval before putting up any signage in a municipal lot, but the idea would be to invest in sandwich board style signage that might go out Wednesday evening, for instance, to notify residents that the parking lot would be utilized after a certain time the following day, or if permitted, to put up signage that remains from June to August during the market months as well. So we're happy to work with staff on approvals and closure times as noted in the motion.
Thank you, Council. So the only change to this is at the very end, we have that the tear down and weekly event by the BIA. And that would be a friendly amendment. So Council, all those in favor? And that has carried. Council, are there any other notices of motion? Fantastic. Are there any items for future consideration? Even better. And I have Councillor Garwood on item 14 or bylaw for the bylaw 14.7. So you know what you're doing. That's great. All right. So I may have a mover and seconder for the approval of the bylaws, please. I have Deputy Cabral and Councillor Fisher that the bylaws listed here and be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. 2023-115 to appoint the deputy chief building official. 2023-116 to appoint the deputy treasurer. 2023-117 adopt a non-union management salary grid. 2023-118 to amend the committee appointment bylaw 2023-093. And 2023-109 to amend the speed limit on Old Orchard, and 2023-120, which Councillor Garwood has declared conflict, the agreement with the Floss Agricultural Society. Are there any questions or comments on these? All those in favor? And that is carried. And may I have a mover and seconder for our confirmation bylaw, please? I have Councillors Fisher and Moore. That bylaw 2023-121 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of the council at the regular meeting held on December 6, 2023, listed here and be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? And that has carried. And a mover and seconder to adjourn the meeting, please. I have Councillor Alexander and Deputy Cabral that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 9:29 p.m. to meet again in regular meeting on December 20th at 2023 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried.